We'll reconvene into open session. We had executive earlier, so, all right. Calling to order, there's a chance for a public input if there's anyone that would like to speak. All right, seeing none. We have our student report by Jensen Kayatamadam.
Yep.
Good job,
Thank
Janine.
you.
So this report's going to be a little brief as it's the end of the year. So final exams will be starting tomorrow, and Monday, June 29th will be the last day of school. And the class of 2017 is hosting a fundraiser on June 24th, Wednesday, June 24th. And cheering tryouts were held this past week. And the end of on behalf of the school, we would like to say thanks to the school committee, as this is the first year held at the new high school.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to
you. The Highland Trophy was awarded to the North Reading High School, and it's based off of the cumulative combined GPA, cumulative sportsmanship, and the win-loss percentage, having a win-loss percentage over 500. And this was a very prestigious award awarded to the high school, and it's from the Cape Ann League Large. And it was recently added that the cumulative sportsmanship and combined GPA was made a factor, so schools that were smaller were able to had the chance to win the award, even though the school is ranked like the third highest in Cape Ann League. And a team from North Reading High School that's entered through the town, North Reading Green Thunder, qualified for MTAC, Massachusetts Tournament of Champions, this past weekend in the Essex County Youth Soccer Association tournament, and they beat Marblehead to win the championship, and will be playing this Friday in a tournament of Massachusetts, representing the Essex County in Massachusetts Tournament of Champions. For my schoolwork, I brought a project that I did in Spanish class. We had to use the future tense in Spanish to say what invention we would make for different purposes. And I made something called like bioelectricity, where you burn wood and you directly get enough electricity to use small appliances such as like lights and like charging your phone. So it's just a future invention that we would make. And we have a rubric here too that my teacher, Mr. Moreno, scored my project off of.
Did you get an A?
I did get an A. Just made the A.
I think you would have brought it here if you did.
That's true. You had mentioned a fundraiser.
Mhm.
What is that, and where is it?
It's at the China Cuisine. For the class of 2017, my class. It'll be just like the last fundraiser of our grade for this year at least.
Okay.
So is that like any order that you make that night?
Yeah,
Percentage
that night.
goes
Yeah,
to the
percentage
class?
goes to our class. Yep. Correct.
Very good.
Wednesday.
Guess what
Wednesday.
we're having for supper?
Yay.
I was at the soccer game. It was a great game because parts of it was Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, and there were torrential
Pouring, yeah.
downpours. And it was a really hotly contested game between North Reading and Marblehead. And it's a great honor because they're representing. And this is the funny thing. Of course, North Reading is in Middlesex County, but we moved soccer to the Essex County League 6 or 7 years ago. And so North Reading is representing Essex County in the U16 boys tournament out at the state championships. And these are teams from all over the state, as far west as you can go, as far north and south as you go. Martha's Vineyard usually has a bunch of teams there. They all have to qualify by winning their leagues. So it's a great accomplishment for the team.
Our like age group has been like going after this since like we were like under 12.
Yep.
This is the first
They've
time
had the
we've
same
qualified,
coach
yeah.
all the way through,
Yep.
so it's great for them.
Would you like to see the student report?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd just like to
Yes.
take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. LaPrette, all the coaches, and all the student athletes at North Reading High School. That's a very prestigious honor, and it was great to see it in the transcript, and very, very proud of our teams. Had a great year.
The fact that they've added, previously, I know, was based solely on wins and losses.
Which we did pretty well.
Which we did pretty well anyway. But I think that the fact that they've added GPA to it and sportsmanship makes it a much more prestigious award. And for us to win it the first year that they've added that criteria, I think it's outstanding, and it speaks to the entire high school community and the entire community in North Reading, that we have students and student athletes and teachers and parents and the rest of the staff that cares about everything, not just winning and losing. I'm sure John feels the same way.
Absolutely. I was very proud to be part of the picture-taking ceremony. It was wonderful. I mean, it really
That
exemplifies.
was a great
Yeah,
picture.
that was a good picture.
That was
It
a great
exemplifies, I
picture.
mean, I think we preach a lot about student-athlete, but it's nice when others take notice, and it's a very nice thing, especially in the inaugural year, so
I think-
certainly share in the congratulations.
Mel and I follow the Dalton standings too, which are the Division III teams. There's like 40 teams, and every year we look at it. And this year we probably dropped down a little bit, but the last 2 years we've been in the top 5.
Yeah, I think we're 9th or 10th this year, which is still impressive, given that there's 41 teams in that
Division.
grouping.
Yeah.
And usually Duxbury is number one almost every year. It's almost impossible to beat Duxbury. But I think we had like a 57% winning percentage for all our teams, all our programs this past school year.
So Mr. LaPret set the bar very high, and we expect it to clear that bar every year.
All set?
Yep.
Thank you.
Jensen?
Welcome.
Thank you, Jensen.
All right. Superintendent, if you would give the SSBC update.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, not in the notes, but just as a point of information, I was able to go through the school most recently last Thursday, took Mrs. Kopke in for her first tour of the middle school, and I think it was
Wonderful.
it was impressive. Yeah, it's really, the progress is good, and I hadn't been in for about a week, and it was nice to see how much progress had been made in that time frame. But just for the committee and the public's information, you don't have to walk around the school too much without noticing the installation of the forms for the concrete plaza out in front. The excavation has taken place at the south side of the middle school parking lot, which would be west of the existing former high school, for the stormwater structure and the piping installation. We were able to get a little bit of a jump on that portion of the project, and that hopefully is going to be some benefit down the line. There's an awful lot of landscaping going on. The trees, the smaller plantings, there must have been, gosh, I don't know, a few hundred plants that were delivered late last week out in front of the what will be the high school entrance, the mass plantings, and actually today they were spreading bark mulch. There's an awful lot of landscaping that's gone on around the building, out in the parking lot, in the islands. It's really shaping up, and it's done an awful lot to change the complexion of the facility. The balancing and testing of mechanical units and components is ongoing and is progressing out of the two-story portion of the middle school toward the one-story structure. The moisture mitigation is complete for the resilient flooring, and the installation of the vinyl tile is approximately 70% complete at this time. The remaining casework for the E&F building one-story classrooms has been delivered, and installation has begun. I would also like just to inform you that both tomorrow morning and Wednesday morning, there will be 2 meetings, one each day, with some identified staff to just further coordinate the move of the middle school. So we have still a lot of work to do in the 5 or 6 remaining days, but I'm confident that with all of the help that we have of our staff and also of the contracted mover and our project manager, that we will be in good shape to fully evacuate the middle school in time, so that work can begin as needed toward the raising of that building. So it kind of sneaked up on us in some respects, the end of the school year here. Here we are, we're looking at June 29th, a week from today, but I'm confident that we'll be in good shape.
All right.
No questions?
It's amazing to watch how much vinyl tile is down.
Boy,
Yeah, is that
and
in
how
the
much
second
ceiling's
story, or
in
is that?
place.
Everywhere now.
Everywhere,
They were
really?
finishing the moisture mitigation on Saturday. They were in there finishing off the various sections of the hallway and everything. So I think they're getting ready to put tile down everywhere.
Very good. Mr. Webster?
John, they've, I think at our last SSBC meeting, they pretty much confirmed that our openings date for school of September 9th right now is solid. And did we, have you officially set dates with the middle school for the tours, when we're going to get the students up there?
I have my supplemental report tonight.
Oh, it's in there? Okay.
It has a schedule of some important dates. I'm going to walk through those with
Right.
you at the end of the meeting, but
Okay, great, thanks.
There's also the yard sale announcement's going to be in the paper this.
Yes, thank you, right.
That will take place on Monday afternoon, 3 to 5.
3 to 5 on the
Everything get
29th.
out by 6.
That's correct.
Are we making any progress with the Max machine?
The Max machine, I believe, is being disassembled by Wayne Hardiker and his staff for temporary, so-called temporary storage for a place to be identified.
Somewhere out
What
where it
is-
won't get damaged.
That is the absolute plan, yes.
What's a Max machine?
It's a football equipment training apparatus.
An indoor blocking machine. So you can practice blocking. Pretty fancy machine. Shows you how much drive you've got and how much lift you've got in your block digitally, showing up on the screen.
And it's currently at the middle school?
And it's been
is.
in the weight room at the middle school, well, the old high school
Yeah.
weight room for
The
last
weight
several
room.
years.
Kathy's been using it.
Yeah. If I think when you say weight room in the middle, the old high school, you're supposed to put quotation marks
Yeah.
on weight room.
Well, it was the weight room.
Correct.
Like so many other things, like laboratories.
Right, exactly. You could have put your quotation marks up
Health
for everything.
classroom in a
all
garage.
sorts of other things that have been modified, the auditorium to the
Right.
Performing Arts Center.
That's great.
All right. Moving on to the policy manual review. It's the second reading of the KGA and the KGAR, the use of the North Reading Public School buildings and grounds. Mr. Bowers or Ms. Kopke, would you?
Made no changes since
No
the first
changes.
reading.
No changes.
Okay, so it's just a matter of
I just wanted to make a comment, actually, in this, I discussed this briefly with Michael and with Janine. We discussed it briefly at the Finance Planning Team meeting on Friday. I don't know if Janine was still there, but Dan Pulver brought up what I brought up the last time about Merrimack College throwing all outside groups out of the Rogers Center.
Right.
And Dan's wife runs a dance studio
North Reading
in North
School.
Reading, and he said she'd be very interested in getting into the high school. And I know we want to be cautious with this, but I also think we don't want to miss an opportunity, especially with Lisa Pulver's dance school, which is local, to get some, activities into some of our facilities here. Obviously, we don't want to overuse them. We don't want the wear and tear to, negate the benefits of using them, having the community use them. But I think we need to determine, how aggressively are we going to market our facilities. I was thinking Main Street, for example, would be a great facility. A lot of small companies in North Reading and in the area, they want to have a little reception. You have 50 people in Main Street, you have 5 tables set up, you have a little reception, you have food served. I think there's just some great opportunities to use this facility. We're not going to generate $1 million, but to generate some funds to go back into the school. So I'd like to make sure that we're at least marketing the facilities to the point where we're getting some interest and maybe taking advantage of some of those groups that have been displaced at Merrimack College.
To the point that we're not going to make $1 million on it, that's probably correct. But if you remember our shortfall in budget this year.
Right, it wasn't $1 million.
Every 25 cents counts.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
So that's the only point I wanted to make.
There are several dance studios, not just the
Right.
North Reading School of Ballet, but I know she specifically had inquired about it prior to even the
She
start
did.
of the building of it,
Mhm.
of this
Right.
facility.
And I
so-
know one thing is we want to make sure everything's working properly, and people out there might be saying, well, shouldn't it be working properly by now? And I guess the answer is yes. I think for the most part, everything's working properly in the auditorium, or the Performing Arts Center. But I want to make sure we don't miss opportunities to lease that space out.
I will tell you, if I could, Madam Chairman, just as an aside, there were a good number of inquiries this year for groups looking to rent, particularly the Performing Arts Center, because we were limited on parking and because we were still working through some of the nuances, if you will, of the mechanics of the Performing Arts Center and its operations. They were turned away. But I'm fairly confident that we'll see those. We told them to come back to us in a year, and I think they will.
Janine, I have a question. Mr. Bernard, we have a staff member who is responsible for the marketing and kind of reaching out to the community?
Website maintenance, yes, and basically billing the facilities for use.
Okay.
That is a new position, stipended position of a full-time employee this year,
Okay.
and going forward into next year.
So it's above and beyond their normal responsibility?
Correct.
They just, okay.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I would need a motion, I guess, for the second reading.
Make a motion on the second reading of KGA and KGAR.
Okay, and could I
Second.
have, all right, wonderful. And all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Next on the agenda is the North Reading Education Association contract agreement, and I believe, Mr. Bowers, you will not be voting, is that correct?
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain.
And I will recuse myself from commenting on it,
Okay,
so I'm
Good.
completely apart from it.
all right.
Had nothing to do with it.
Mr. Webster, Mr.
So all the
Venezia, would you like
teachers-
to?
All the educators out there can be assured that I'm not responsible.
Okay. Good, bad, or
Jerry, why don't you-
otherwise, right?
Want to start?
Yeah, take the lead.
Just jump in whenever you're
All
ready.
right.
We negotiated a new 3-year contract with the North Reading Education Association. Took about 6 months of intense negotiations. Mr. Bernard and Dr. Daly and Mr. Conley, along with Mr. Webster, myself, and our legal counsel, were involved in the negotiations with the representative team from the NREA. And we did come to an agreement. I believe that the NREA has already ratified the agreement, so it's up to us to vote on it tonight. It's a 3-year contract from July 1st of 2015 through June 30th of 2018. There's a cost of living increase. The first year, FY16 is 1%, FY17 is 2%, and FY18 is 3%. I think, just as importantly, we established a new salary schedule. So that the salary schedule for all teachers in the district will now be based on a 9-lane, 12-step schedule that incorporates incorporates from bachelor's degree to master's plus 60 in those 9 lanes. And it changes what we had in the past, which was North Reading credits combined with degree credits to get an increase above and beyond the regular salary schedule. This salary schedule is a much more traditional schedule. I think it's consistent with a lot of other salary schedules in other districts.
Right, just our current schedule before this contract goes into effect could basically be compared to no other district.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier for us to see where we are with our teachers and for the teachers to see where they are. And when teachers come in from other districts or our teachers leave to go to other districts, we're on a one-to-one basis now, so it's kind of understandable as to where they are or where teachers come in.
In this salary schedule, if you look at other districts, if you want to compare, you're comparing now apples to apples rather than
Right.
apples to oranges. This was the result of a lot of work that was done since the last contract was negotiated by a subcommittee that included Mr. Conley again, and I think Mr. Daly, and members of the NREA, and they did a lot of good work on this. And through just maybe a couple of, I think actually the first session that
It was
we
the first
sat
session,
down,
yeah.
we were able to come to an agreement on this particular salary schedule. So again, really the only other couple of things that we changed in the contract was we did agree to $15,000 starting in FY17 and continuing on thereafter to be used for course reimbursement for our teachers who in fact take certain approved courses and they get credit for them. There will
Sure.
be a pool of $15,000.
I just wanted to interject there, at this kind of, reading through the high school improvement plan, there are a lot of mentions through a lot of the different departments about increased opportunity to take courses in various areas, professional development courses, and I think that this reimbursement pool is going to help to achieve some of those goals.
And again, this starts in FY17. We also were able to negotiate with the teachers an elimination of the sick leave buyback for all teachers who are hired beginning in fiscal year 2018. That would be July 1st of 2017, actually.
Right.
And that's something that we've been working on over the last basically the last 12 years, is to try to get under control of sick leave buyback. And this is the most recent step that we've taken in that direction by eliminating it for all new hires. And finally, there is a subcommittee that's been put in place, similar to the one that worked on the salary schedule, that's going to look at extracurricular activity stipends, including coaches' stipends, over the next couple of years. And hopefully that's something we can implement the next time around. It's something we hope to do this time, but we weren't able to get it done. But I think that pretty much sums up the contract. I would like to thank the NREA and their representatives, Mark Gogani, the president, for the professional manner in which they conducted the negotiations. It was not always pleasant, but we got it done. And I certainly want to thank John and Michael and Patrick, because they did great work on this. So it's always good to get a teacher's contract put to bed.
Right, exactly.
Especially before the contract expires. So this
Yes.
contract that we're under now is June 30th. We're just under the wire, and it'll be a new contract starting July 1st. I don't know if you had anything.
I just want to agree with what Jerry said in terms of the professional level of negotiations. Doesn't mean that at times it doesn't get a little heated, but I think people are always able to kind of cool down and come back and act on a professional basis, and that's what happened this time. And I think the NREA did a great job. I think we did a good job representing the community, which I think is important. It's hard when you're trying to balance representing the community and also wanting to reward the teachers and not make the teachers think that you don't think highly enough of them, but at the same time, not make the taxpayers think that you're giving away the store. So it's always difficult negotiating, especially the NREA contract, because they're the biggest group by far, employee group by far in our district. But I think it went really well.
I think
and
the salary
I'm pleased.
schedule is comparable to other districts that
Yes.
we would compare ourselves to.
Right.
Which is important. I mean, we want our teachers, obviously, to be well compensated, and I think this accomplishes that.
Yeah, I don't think we're number one, but I think we had 12 groups, or we were 11 groups, we were comparing ourselves against 11 other districts. We're not number one, but we're closer to number one than we are to number 11. I'd say we're above the midpoint.
Right.
At just about every level of the scale.
Mhm.
And so, as Jerry said, it's competitive.
Very good, thank you. With the exclusion of Mr. Bowers, I would need a motion to approve.
Yeah. I'll move to approve a contract between the North Reading School District, North Reading School Committee, and the North Reading Education Association, 3-year contract that begins July 1st, 2015, and ends June 30th, 2018.
And a second?
Second.
Oops. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All right, motion passes, thankfully. Thank you, guys. 4-0 with 1 abstention.
No.
Next would be the North Reading Food Service employee contract. Michael, would you?
Sure. Great, thank you. So I'm happy to report this evening that we also concluded negotiations with the food service union over the last several weeks. The contract, as was the case this past year, is a 1-year agreement for the 2015 and 16 school year with a 2% cost of living adjustment. There is really no other significant changes to the food service employee contract for next year. So it's a 1-year agreement. This will be the second straight contract renewal that is only extended for 1 year. I think this allows the district the ability to continue to evaluate the food service program, a process that we began last fiscal year, continued into this fiscal year, and that will allow us to do that as we prepare to open the new combined middle school, high school next year. We're certainly very pleased with the progress and the performance of the food service program and the steps that we've taken, this school year, and we're hopeful that that will continue next year as well. So I certainly appreciate Ms. Embriano, her assistance and participation in the process over the last several months, as well as the members of the food service union and food service workers that participated in negotiations. It again was a very collaborative process, and I'm certainly very thankful that we've come to an agreement.
All right. Any?
Just to refresh, about a year and a half ago, we had a subcommittee that studied our food service program because we were losing just too much money every year, and the deficit was increasing. And at that time, one of the things we were considering was completely privatizing the operation out to a food service company. However, after we went through I think it was myself, John, and Michael,
Right.
after we reviewed everything, we made a decision to stick with Chartwell's and not privatize it, and to give it a couple of years until the high school and middle school were open, so we could get a better read on how the program was running. And as Mr. Conley said, this year, we've had a significant improvement in the financial side of the situation. And I'm assuming the food quality also, given a
It is
brand-new
good.
kitchen,
Yeah.
and the food and the choices. So we're hoping that next year with the middle school opening, we can maybe break even or come close to breaking even
Right, that's-
next year.
Yep.
So that's why this year we'll do another one-year contract, and then next year we negotiate. We'll get back on a schedule where it's, if everything's working as it
Yep.
should, we'll get back on negotiating 3-year contracts.
Correct. Absolutely.
Any other comments or discussion? No? All right, if someone would like to make a motion to accept the contract?
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. All right, we have some awards to give out, awards of appreciation. And do we have,
Ms. O'Connell, I think, is going to
Okay.
speak.
are you, okay, certainly, thank you.
So Superintendent Bernard talked to all the principals about, and I think it's a new award that the school committee is giving out, an appreciation for parents who step up, or community members who step up and go above and beyond their role of, sending their students to us every day. So I had the pleasure 2 years ago, to begin working with 3 parents. One was not a middle school parent yet, is now. Her name is Karen Casey. One was a middle school parent and is no longer, Rich McGowan. He's a high school parent. And the other is still a middle school parent and a high school parent, and her name is Carolyn Kopolis. And they joined me with several staff members and administrators in a group that I've talked with you about several times, NRMS 2.0. We put the group together 2 years ago to think about moving into our brand new school, and we're all so excited about it. But we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything that we could to take advantage of a brand new facility with all the 21st century technology and logistics and classroom setups. So we traveled to different schools, and Rich attended many of those site visits. We had monthly meetings. We met over the summer. We read lots of good research. We talked. We debated. I think, for me, as a principal, it was one of the most rewarding experiences that I had, and I couldn't have done it without the parent perspective. Parents like Rich and Karen and Caroline gave up their time, and all for the benefit, not even for middle school kids necessarily, because some of them had moved on, but just for the benefit of the North Reading Public Schools. So I felt that the award, as it was described to me, fit them perfectly. So Rich is here to receive his. Unfortunately, Carolyn Kopolis had a lacrosse banquet, I think, to attend to, and Karen Casey is teaching tonight. So they're unable to come, but they're very appreciative. But Rich is here, so I'd love to present Rich.
You made the right choice.
And I think this is a wonderful idea that the school committee has to honor parents. Thank you, Rich.
A rose between two thoughts.
Yes.
Really good guys. Yeah. I got to meet him. He was on the search committee. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
That was fun. The school improvement plan presentation by, for the middle school and the North Reading High School, is it a PowerPoint presentation that you're going to
It
give?
is. They have 2 separate ones, yes.
Oh, so, okay, because the elementary.
I don't know if you want to move.
Do I?
You might also.
Oh,
come
yes.
over there. Okay. I think Ms. O'Connell, you first?
I am.
You first, all right.
That's how it was on the agenda.
Yeah?
That's right, I do too. should have mentioned that Rich McGowan served on my school council for at least 2 years, I believe, too. Not for this plan, but in years prior. So thank you for the opportunity to share a few highlights from this past year and then moving on to what we hope to accomplish next year. As you can see, my council was comprised of 2 teachers, Helena Meyer, a 6th grade English language arts teacher, Stephanie Shakrella, a 6th grade social studies teacher, Nancy Parsons, a community representative, Lori Giacalone, a parent representative, and Jennifer Sullivan, a parent representative. And with the exception, I believe, of Nancy Parsons, I believe we'll have a whole new school council in the fall. We'll be looking for, hopefully, some new parents entering as 6th grade new middle school parents. So some of the highlights from this year, we continued to use iPads and Google Chromebooks in our classrooms. We, I believe, have 3 sets of 30 Chromebooks that we push into classrooms as much as possible, and they are used often. They're hard to get, actually. We sign them out, and teachers are really taking advantage of this new technology, and in fact, that's what we hope to use more of in the new building are these Google Chromebooks. They're very portable and easy for the kids to use and save their work to Google Docs, and they can open up at home or anywhere they are to continue working. And also the iPads, we've continued to use those as much as possible in our classrooms. We also continued this year with the implementation of district-determined measures. Every teacher gave at least one pre-assessment in the fall and are now giving their post-assessments, and it's exciting to see as we look at the data to see the growth that students have made in different subjects from fall to spring. And we will continue to do that next year. We also continued with the new educator evaluation system, and most teachers at this point have already passed in their binders, their portfolios to show evidence towards their student learning goals and their professional practice goals and their proficiency against the standards. And then they meet with their supervising evaluator or primary evaluator to get feedback. It's in the second year, I feel like it's a little bit more organized and gone more smoothly, and we will continue that next year. We also continued our expansion of our language-based program. That's a special education program, small group instruction in English language arts into grade 8. We did that this year. And most exciting, I think, for me, is the implementation of the first year of the NRMS 2.0 recommendations. Again, that was the work that Rich and Carolyn and Karen and many teachers and administrators helped us with. We were able to increase collaboration time for teachers to plan together for things like district-determined measures and common team goals and content area goals. We also implemented a social curriculum this year to meet the non-academic needs of our students, and as I'm sure you're all aware, adolescent children have many non-academic needs, and meeting those needs is very important to me. And this year we put together a curriculum designed to meet their growing emotional and peer relation needs in terms of setting goals and talking about peer conflict. We had about 10 care day mornings throughout the year where we extended homeroom and 2 adults were in each homeroom, and kids just worked together on different activities and different projects. And I think it was a great success. We'll continue that next year. We also adjusted our general arts schedule. General arts at the middle school are classes like art, music, computers, robotics, performing arts, PE, health, and we changed the schedule for a variety of reasons, but one of them was as we move into the new building, we made our general arts rotation every other day because many of those classes are held in the shared spaces to complement the green and gold day that the high school has. So we're hoping that will help us as we begin to mesh our schedules together to share those common spaces. So the highlights again were the care days. That's what we called the social curriculum days, cultivating awareness and respect. Our drama club productions, I don't know how many of you saw The Wizard of Oz, but it was fantastic. It was the first performance, the first official performance in the Performing Arts Center, and for middle school kids, it was absolutely outstanding. And we also had a drama club production that kind of went under the radar a little bit, but it did go to competition and won several awards. It was kind of a pun on fairy tales, and it was Law and Order fairy tale units. And so it was a kind of a play on all the fairy tales. It was done very well, and they did take it to competition, and as I said, won several awards. We had a March Madness basketball tournament where students played against each other, and this is an annual activity that we have, but on Wednesday, the winner of that team, the student team that won, gets to play the faculty. And I'm proud to say that I have played every year, and I'm a starter. I intend to play on Wednesday, and so far I've been successful at scoring at least 1 point, so that's this coming Wednesday. We also had a talent, yes. What position do you play? Center. I'm a 5. I can be a 4 if necessary. We also had a talent show when we held that at this Performing Arts Center. It was terrific. It was on a Friday night a couple months ago. Lots of middle school girls singing, and it was well attended and lots of fun. And we just came back. I actually didn't go this year, but we just came back from our Washington, D.C. trip. It was a great success. We actually received a really nice letter from one of the tour guides that I shared with Superintendent Bernard, and I hope he has an opportunity to share it with you, complimenting our 8th grade class and such a nice job that they did, and it gives him faith in our future to see middle school kids behaving and engaged like our middle school kids were. So those are just some highlights for this past year. It's been a great year, and I'd say that even though we were, relocated down to the old high school and we made the best of it, we did as much as we could in that space, and it served us well, and we'll be moving on to our new building, and we're all very, very excited. This is our 3rd move.
Just one comment. It's amazing how we're not even in the new school yet, and the difference, for example, that the Performing Arts Center has made in terms of the kids being able to use it and get that real feel of a performing arts center and not performing their plays in the, whatever we call it,
Cafetorium
that we had. Yeah. And it's real now to the kids, and we're not even moved in yet. So it just that having that rub off on the younger kids, like the little school being up here this past weekend, it's the whole community that's affected. It's just not the high school that this has an impact on, and obviously it's a positive impact.
We actually last week invited our incoming 5th grade students from the 3 elementary schools to come up to the auditorium to have a kind of meet and greet, and they met with some 8th grade students who told them all about middle school as well as some of their teachers and guidance counselors, and it was nice to see our new 6th grade class in the Performing Arts Center, and they're very excited to get into the new building. So moving on to this coming year, I like to set up my school improvement plan based on NRPS 2016, so I usually set my goals around the 3 main areas of NRPS 2016, which is, it's hard to believe that we're going to be approaching 2016. But for teaching and learning, again, we're going to continue with the implementation, and now really I hope to see more analysis of the district-determined measures. Where is the growth? Where is there lack of growth? What can we do about that? How will it affect instruction? So we will continue implementing the district-determined measures next year. We will continue to implement an accelerated pathway for mathematics. This past year was the first year that we did a compacted 7-8 accelerated math class, and it was very successful. 42, I think, students will be moving on to Algebra 1 as 8th graders. So we will continue that next year. We will have Algebra 1 for that group of 8th graders, and again, a new group of kids moving into the compacted 7-8 accelerated math class for 7th graders. We will also be, as you know, reducing academic ability grouping in grade 7, and I know that I met with you in February and explained that to you. It is an NRMS 2.0 recommendation. It's something that I'm very excited about and feel very confident in the fact that we will look back in a year or 2 years and see the achievement gap narrowing and see more students taking challenging courses as they enter high school, I think, because of this change in grouping practices.
Kathy, I have a question on the accelerated pathway for math. Is there a limit to the numbers? Say we have, we have a class that just really excels in math, and we have 80 students who we think qualify for that class. Can we give that class to 80 students, or is there a limit?
There isn't a limit. There is a very objective set of criteria that the students need to meet in order to get into that class. So there's a placement test, there's an end-of-year grade, there is teacher recommendation and PARCC or MCAS scores. So if kids meet those criteria, there isn't a set number of students that will be allowed in. Last year we had 2 classes, two groups of 20-something to make up the 42. And we anticipate about 40 kids entering grade 7 in the 7-8 class. That's out of a group of 205. And my own student learning goal, and still part of teaching and learning, is to continue to chip away at the mathematics growth. And I'd like to see an increase in the student growth percentile for mathematics in 2 of the 3 grades for 2015-16. I had been using MCAS as a tool to monitor that, and I hope to be able to use PARC SGP to monitor that. We'll have to see when we get the results to set the baseline for how they performed in 2015 to be able to compare that to how they perform, or how they performed in 14. I'm still working on math and trying to increase our student achievement in math. I've been working on that for the last few years. Following Superintendent Willis had math as her student learning goal last year. So that was kind of the impetus for me to set that as my student learning goal. In terms of technology integration, we'll continue to work with our assistant superintendent and hopefully director of digital learning to make instructional technology integral to our classroom instruction. We're excited to have new technology in the new building, the Eno boards, and again, the Chromebooks are what we're using. In the new building, we don't have a dedicated traditional computer lab. We have a state-of-the-art robotics lab and a technology lab, but not a place for kids to go and do research or type up a paper. The Chromebooks push into classrooms and allow kids to do research in their classroom, and we're excited to be able to continue to use those. And our Parents Association generously, as soon as you accept it, donated money toward more Google Chromebooks for the new year to kind of add to what the building project is able to give us. The other area for NRPS 2016 that I'm focusing on is student support services. So again, I've mentioned the social curriculum. I feel that is an important area that we need to continue to meet for our students' social and emotional needs. So we will continue to have care days next year. And again, that's maybe once a month or so. We will extend homeroom and have an activity designed to meet the non-academic needs of our students. And the activities are created by a committee of teachers, guidance counselors, and myself. And we thought about buying something off the shelf or finding a program, but we felt last year, and I think still feel strongly, that we're creating it ourselves based on the needs of the North Reading Middle School children. And I believe this first year has been successful, so we'll continue that next year. We're also going to be continuing to implement the Massachusetts tiered system of support to better meet the academic and non-academic needs of our students. That is an NRMS 2.0 recommendation. That's a response to intervention program. So right now at the middle school, we do not currently have a formal program to respond to kids who begin to fail or begin to struggle. We meet their needs as best we can, but this is a formal program, data-driven program that we hope to implement next year that will have set intervention blocks where students can get extra math help, extra reading or writing help, extra study skills or executive functioning help, and extra enrichment if they don't need any of those interventions. So that's something that is backed by the DESE, but it's something that I feel as we toured other schools during the NRMS 2.0 project, we saw lots of other schools have a response to intervention program, and we felt that was a void and we didn't have that, so we're going to begin to implement that at the middle school. We already started unpacking it this year, but we hope to actually have intervention blocks in the fall. And we're going to continue to implement the changes to the language-based program into grade 8. Again, we did that last year with a small group ELA class. This will be a small group math class, and that is a special education initiative. It's designed to meet the needs of language-based learners in a small setting. It's the same curriculum, just a little bit of a different pedagogical approach to better meet the needs of students who have been formally diagnosed as language-based students. They have different needs than a typical student in terms of learning. And our big initiatives are moving into our new beautiful middle school. We can't thank you enough, the school committee and the secondary school building committee for our new building. I've been in as recent as last week. I'm very excited. It's been a long 4 years, but I think that the teachers have been patient and are excited to get into their new classrooms and begin to start the fall without having to think about moving again. And I think probably most importantly, AJ and I are going to have the opportunity, as well as Michael Maloney and Michael Downs, to work collaboratively to ensure that we are sharing the spaces, using them efficiently and equitably. And I think making sure that our populations of students are taking advantage of the great opportunities that will, being together will lend themselves in terms of peer leaders, peer opportunities. We had, about 2 weeks ago, several 8th grade students came up for a SAD workshop that high school kids ran. So a couple of hours in the morning, several SAD, Students Against Destructive Decision-Making, high school students ran a workshop for middle school students in the Library Media Center. And it was great. So taking advantage of those positive opportunities, AJ and I will work on when that's appropriate to be able to mix the groups and make sure that everyone stays safe, and we stay as two separate schools, but take advantage of the times when we can come together. So I think that's it for me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes?
As a middle school parent, with the new building and the shared facilities, what happens with flex time, where they currently are using the library, which has some digital resources, obviously textbooks, things like that? What's the plan for next year?
We have a classroom for Flex next year, so we're going to try to reduce the number of students in Flex, and they'll be in a classroom. And we'll have the Chromebooks if they need to use technology. I liked having them in the library for that reason, but I don't think we'd be sharing the library equitably if we held Flex there every day. Now, I already spoke with our current high school librarian, and we hope to hire a middle school librarian about the possibility of having passes during Flex, so students may check in with the librarian and say, would you have space for me to come today during my Flex? And they can choose to give them a pass or not if they're able to be there. So that's something that we certainly will do, but we won't be sending a whole group of students to the library. We have a dedicated classroom for that.
I had heard that the current media center does sometimes get crowded.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how that was going to work when you add a whole other group of kids in that may in fact need to go in there to do research,
Right.
which they didn't do this year.
Yeah, I'm hoping, I don't want to quantify and be held to it, but I'm hoping that at any given Flex time, 5 to 10 middle school students could be given passes to come to the library. That seems reasonable to me, but we'll certainly work collaboratively and with the current librarian and the new librarian to figure out what the right amount is. And it may vary on different days.
Well, I think the one thing to remember too is, in addition to the large open space, there are several smaller rooms right now occupied by the central administration staff. But then, when school opens, they shouldn't be in there anymore.
Right.
And those rooms maybe could be used for middle school students, while the high school students are in the big library, media center part of it, and the middle school students are using those smaller rooms. And I think we have options.
Yeah, I was already thinking that myself.
Yeah, so,
It's a great space.
yeah, it is.
Another question.
Yeah.
As a middle school parent, I have some concerns about conference scheduling for kids, and I was wondering if you could perhaps talk a little bit about how you handle that, year to year, and if you find that parents are receptive to the current program.
Sure. So going back a few years ago, we changed the conference schedule. Quite frankly, we were not able to meet the demands. I think our population at that point was upwards of 680 students, and we were not able to meet, literally, we were not able to fill the demand for parent conferences during those 3 days in November. So we, again, looked at what other middle schools are doing. We researched, we talked with, my school council helped me quite a bit with that. I think Rich was part of it at that point. And we decided that we would change to an academic open house in the fall, encouraging students and parents to come to the middle school in November to see student work samples in each of their classrooms, to see a portfolio of work that had been done. And then in January to have conferences by invitation, so the teachers would initiate conferences for parents of children that they had concerns for. But emphasizing throughout, and as often as I can, that conferences with the team of teachers are available to parents at any time. They just need to contact the student's team leader. And my feeling is that to have a conference in November for less than 10 minutes is not as valuable to have as to call in December when you have a concern and have 30 or 40 minutes with a team of teachers, I think that's more valuable. That was our thought behind changing the system. We did survey the parents at the end of that year, and it was mixed, and I did share the results with Superintendent Willis at the time. I think over 100 parents participated in the survey, and I still have those results in SurveyMonkey, and I could share that with you at some point. Mixed results, but most of the parents felt like the new system was working fine as long as they were able to have a team meeting at their request, and they are. They just need to contact the team leader. So that's where we currently are.
I've just heard from quite a few parents that they were denied the opportunity to come in and speak about their children. And I know for me, it took about 8 weeks to finally get a time to come in and speak about my son. And I was very concerned about, the time lapsing in between. So I didn't know if perhaps we could reach out again to parents and see, if they were able to get in and
I've talked to Superintendent
recommendations.
Bernard about the possibility of running conferences the way the high school runs them, where you stand outside, you're the teacher that you'd like to see, and I think you have 3 minutes? 3 minutes. 3 minutes to speak with the teacher. I personally, based on the middle school model of teams, didn't feel like 3 minutes with one teacher would be...
I agree.
would be great. I would encourage you, Julie, to talk with any parents that mention that, to say, please contact Kathy O'Connell immediately.
Mm-hmm.
No parent should wait 8 weeks and not have a response and not feel like they can come to me directly through email, phone call, stop in, and obviously that's not reasonable to wait 8 weeks. So
Great, thank you.
the statement to parents, the general statement is to contact the team leader, but I will emphasize in the fall, should you be unsuccessful reaching out to the team leader, to contact me at any time for any reason directly, because I will obviously want to know if you're having trouble. And I'll work with Superintendent Bernard about, and we already have talked about the current conference model, to see if it can be improved.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Kathy, I just want to thank you and your faculty and staff and all the students in the middle school, because you guys have been the most inconvenienced by this project. There's no question about it. You were trying to run classes there while we were building a building right outside your windows. You had to move, as you suggested, several times. I'm really glad you can get in there in September and be settled. And I think you need to let everybody know the first few weeks will probably be hectic.
I know.
That's just the way it is. I mean, we went through this last year with the high school. Everything's not perfect when you first get in there, but thank you very much for putting up with all the inconvenience, and I'm glad you're finally going to be moving into your new home.
We're excited, and I'll share your gratitude with our teachers. They're very excited too, and they've done a great job in less than desirable
Yes.
circumstances, but they've done a nice job. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move right ahead with the high school. We have a improvement plan council, school council of 10 people, a number of teachers, parents, students, and myself, Mr. Downs, the new assistant principal. So we think about the start of the school year, different people in different roles. Now here we are at the end of the school year, three new people in 3 different roles, which is very exciting. But it's been a very, very good year for us, and I'm happy to share with you through our improvement plan and the highlights of the 14-15 year. So obviously the whole transition process and how we've managed to become at home in these spaces, and how we've been able to really, I think, thrive in the really key learning areas in the new building, the Performing Arts Center, the Distance Learning Lab, where we are today, obviously the Fitness Center, the Library Media Center, just, overwhelming for us compared to, again, as we said, the old high school, right? And of course, the added bonus of the breakout spaces, which you can see on each floor, and those opportunities for collaboration, which teachers are very sensitive to accessing times when those type of projects or small learning groups and things like that, as we look at collaboration as a true 21st century skill, and then having a place to do it more effectively. as Jensen talked before about the Highland Trophy, again, just a real nice opportunity for the students and the athletes to be recognized for how they play, who they are, what they do in the classroom, and I think from the coach's perspective, an extension of how we'd like to have our programs run. So that's just a real nice thing for our school to be awarded. AP recognition, the 5th annual AP Honor Roll, North Reading, the district, okay, was recognized as one of 44 districts in Massachusetts on the honor roll for an increase in overall tests and an increase in overall scores. Certainly something that I take a lot of pride in. I know the students work very hard. I'm a firm believer in our philosophy of allowing students to challenge themselves, to not put up barriers, and requirements and prereqs to say, well, you have to do these number of things before you can get into this AP class. And that's what learning's all about. So it's nice to be recognized for that with our approach. Obviously, our curriculum writing and our revisions go on, and our common assessment strategies are continuing to try to identify an effective way to collect data on student learning and more effective data. And that's, of course, what you're gaining from the common assessment approach. The dance club was introduced this year, very exciting. Maybe you went to a basketball game and saw the dance club perform. Mike Rosa, the Director of Guidance, is doing a fantastic job with the Naviance program for students and parents. And one of the big goals, or one of the big accomplishments, I should say, this year was further streamlining the college application process through Naviance. We took another couple of steps toward making that just more efficient for parents and for students. We've got kind of a tryout of a college app boot camp planned for August, with some student interest in having kids come in early and take care of some of these things and get some teachers to look at their college apps and their essays, and to, again, get them more familiar with Naviance and the application process. So that's an exciting thing we've got planned. And that was a student-driven idea from some of the seniors this year. The climate study team, of course, continues their work, and we're happy to see that the freshman advisory program will continue. I think we've seen the gains from that program as students come into the school and have a better understanding of connecting with peers and connecting with another adult in the school. So that's been a successful program. So a couple of highlights from 15-16. I'm sorry, 14-15. So on to goals for 15-16. Some kind of standard goals here that we are committed to and remain committed to. Continue advocating for staffing. We've had a great opportunity to increase staffing this year. We're very, very lucky and very happy with the gains that we made in the needed staffing in the areas of science, in the area of the guidance counselor. We've got some math gains. So as we look at the larger population and how that's impacting the classroom and the student-teacher ratio and the number of programs that we want to offer, and to be able to see the staffing come through to allow those things to happen is very encouraging for us. I know the teachers and myself especially very happy to see those staffing gains. The educational program, of course, and those steps that we're going to take toward meeting the needs of the 21st century learner. Those are, again, kind of standard goals that the school council works toward and focuses on as they do their work. Just as the NRPS 2016 document is a guiding document for the district, and certainly helps guide our, as the school council, our actions and on our energies and efforts to work toward accomplishing these goals. Number 4, providing an extracurricular program to students that contributes to their well-roundedness as individuals. Again, I think we've seen very clear evidence of that when you talk about something like the Highland Trophy, or you go to the some of the work of the maskers in the music program. You know, just to see, when I was in Framingham, to see the students performing their Hound of the Baskervilles adaptation, just fantastic. And then, of course, the musical as well. So there's there's not a lot of schools that I think really beat us in those areas. We've really got, whoops, I want to advance here, excuse me. Okay. We've got some great people leading those clubs and activities, and it shows. It shows. That shows in the care and commitment of the staff and the care and commitment of the advisors that invest so much time and energy into those programs. Expanding technology as a teaching and learning tool. Again, I think, and I'll say this as a parent, you know, when we talk about adding technology into the classroom, and I know with my son, as I sit there and he's on the laptop, you know, banging away, I said, well, I'm not really sure this is helping you right now. How do we make sure it's really working? So I think there's a lot of attention to that and making sure that the technology that we have in place is really enhancing learning versus possibly creating a distraction, which is something that I know goes on in my house. And this is good. This is not Concord Cable right now, but so I think the attention to those areas is so important, and it's something that I know the teachers really work toward. And the communication between the teachers about what technologies they're working in, you know, the language teachers using Google Voice and sharing some other apps amongst themselves to make sure the kids have a more effective way to speak in the target language and things like this. You know, it's just indicative of the faculty here. So that's a nice goal, again, to continue to be focused on. Obviously, in 2014, we had our site visit from the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. We had a number of recommendations that came out of that site visit, which we were expecting, and a number of them addressed by being in the new building, so that's good to know. But there's some other things that we need to respond to, and we're happy to do that. That 2-year progress report is due in October of 2016. We have a committee formed. They're working on addressing those recommendations. There are a number of highlighted recommendations which require a little more attention, but all in all, I think you might recall from the report, I think it's reflective of the great work that we're doing here. The goal, again, to work with the middle school administration and faculty to make sure that we're getting as much as we can out of the building, and that our kind of relationship is working well, and that if there's an issue or a need or a gap or somewhere, that we're there to work together to take care of that. Obviously, we'll continue to work with the Common Core standards in English language arts and math, and as Kathy said before me, of course, too, with the education evaluation model, to make sure that system is working as well as it is, and the feedback from the teachers to the administrators and the administrators back to the teachers, and that it's an opportunity for growth, it's an opportunity for improvement, it's an opportunity for the discussions that are so important in the work that we do. Initiatives for 15-16, whoa. Again, the 2-year progress report, to work on that document. We've got a number of new faculty, obviously, that we're going to be bringing in. We want to make sure that mentoring process goes smoothly and is effective for all parties. Continue to look at staffing needs as we bring in, again, a larger population. The SAT is changing, and you may probably be aware of that. And how is that something that we're addressing as well? There are a couple of things that I just share with you very quickly. That the new SAT model is really something that I think might be summed up by just a couple of little distinctions. It seems it's definitely more about depth than breadth. There's a term called the heart of algebra as far as the math goes, and that getting deep into understanding algebraic concepts as opposed to kind of saying, can you do this equation or figure that out or solve this? It's what's happening, why, and more of, I think, of attention to critical thinking rather than understanding. I think to a degree the same could be said about the English portion, where you might say, well, read a passage and talk about what it means, or what's the intent, what is the author trying to do. You're responding to saying, how does the author build his or her argument? How is the communication, how is the information related to you, and what's the intent? Don't just report back what you think was meant or what you think was stated. But what's the intent? How is it related? How does he build the argument? He or she build the argument? Those type of things. Back to the math real quick. Whereas I believe on the SAT that's just wrapping up, you can use your calculator. On this one, it's probably about a 60-40 split where you cannot use your calculator. So those are things that we're preparing for, and that we're going to be, paying attention to as we prepare our kids for that test. Naturally, we'll be working to achieve the goals of the document. We'll look at continued expansion of course offerings. I think there's some growth areas here. Certainly, for example, say the business department or sciences again. There's a number of opportunities where I want to make sure that we are putting out a curriculum that's relevant and that's of high interest for students. And then, as we look introspectively, we have a couple of opportunities for students to speak about their experiences with the Youth Risk Survey, which will get that data back, and our own internal survey that we did through working in cooperation with the Community Impact Team. So those are some initiatives for 15 and 16. Questions? Okay.
I might as well ask something. I don't have a high schooler yet, but I have heard, for example, with the science classes and the scheduling issues, that not every single class in the catalog is being offered. How do you think you're going to balance this expansion of course offerings with just the big number?
Well, it's an excellent point, but it's one that I think the system that's been in place and that course enrollment really drives the ship is the system that we'll continue to use. Knowing that we had a large number of freshmen preparing to take chemistry as sophomores, I was a little trepidation about making sure that was going to happen. Had said, well, maybe we're not going to run this, or maybe we're not going to run that. Let's figure this out. Let's figure that out. But if you rely on the students, essentially saying, this is what I want to take, and this is where the interest is. When you have a class of 7, as much as you might want to say, well, this is a really important course versus a class of 27, you see where the interest is, and you'd like to cover everything, of course, but you have to make some decisions when you look at the available staffing, and we'll let the student sign-ups drive that.
Are you looking at maybe doing a 2-year model for some of those classes so that?
You mean like a semester model?
Yes.
Yeah, there's been discussions about that. We've actually done that with a couple of courses. Say, well, if you want to, you really like this topic or this area, you have a course around this or that, create a course, blend the two together, and we can run it that way. So there's options. There's options.
Just,
Rich?
Hey, AJ, on the new SAT, I've read that the College Board has worked with online educators like Khan Academy to develop some free test prep courses. I wonder if you thought of ways to do outreach to the community on, so that they become aware of that.
Right,
So that
right.
students who are not able to afford, private prep courses might be able to take advantage of this kind of.
Yeah, I think there's certainly potential there for that type of thing. I am going to kind of rely on the guidance department. I think they have a sense of what, I can imagine when we have something like a new SAT, there's going to be a burgeoning of this program and that program, and I'm not so sure. Obviously, the Khan Academy is one that's, that's well established.
And not to, I mean, whether it's good or not, who knows, but I'm just saying it's
Yeah.
a free offering, it's one.
Yeah, and I think those are opportunities. I mean, the nice thing is that the building, can support large numbers of that type of thing. We have the two computer labs downstairs and things like that. So I would say those things are in the works. And we have our SAT prep course, we do.
in the curriculum, as part of the curriculum.
That's the same question really as Rich. I just want to make sure, particularly when there's a new test in place, that we're doing everything we can to give adequate preparation to the students, because I was not real pleased with the SAT scores last year. And that's been a pet peeve of mine for a long time, is whether or not we can do more to prepare the kids for those tests.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We're still running an SAT prep course?
We hosted the Summit Leadership Group. They ran a course here. We had students attending that.
How much participation are we getting? Because like I said, I'd really like to see us
Yeah.
encourage as much.
No, I
We can give them some type of a lead-in as to how the test is going
Right.
to change, so they know what to expect.
Well, I think, and that's certainly on the forefront of my mind. And I've spoken to guidance about this already. The fall summit, they're really not going to release any information until early August about what the news test is going to look like. So I think at that point, everybody's going to start to be rolling out their products and things like that.
I'd like to just give our kids as much advantage as we can.
No, I agree. I'm with you. And we've talked about it, and, we offer the course. We're going to make sure the course is updated. We'll have the summit course. We'll probably do an in-house course on our own, and like, Rich, spoke about, some idea of getting some kids on some time after school, or maybe during Power Block to run some of the training modules or the practice modules.
Good, thank you.
Do you mind if I just add to that, that AJ and I have had discussions with the curriculum leader for math and English about running a kind of like a boot camp, an SAT prep boot camp, once the changes are released. Right now, the summit course runs over several weeks. The course that we run as a regular course in the curriculum at the high school for juniors, that runs all year. We're talking about some sort of a mini course where it could be just some last-minute test-taking strategies leading up to a test date that's popular with our students in the fall and in the spring, so.
As an in-house program.
Communicate that with the parents if you're running this?
I'm sorry?
Is there a way to communicate that with the parents?
Well, when the time
once we
is right.
establish it, yeah.
I think, like AJ said, the change is, the full release is due in the late summer, and I think once we have that, we'll be able to shape a program that, is suitable for the number of hours and number of days, afternoons, say, that the course would be offered. But I think it's fair to say, we communicate out the Summit Educational course pretty regularly through email blasts, and I would imagine if we ran a
Would
boot camp of
students
our
need to
own, we would
pay
do
for
as
that
well.
type of course? If the
They do.
district, okay,
They would pay for an in-house course too, and that's.
they would pay for an in-house, okay,
If it's run by our people, they'd still
sure.
need to be
If it was
paid.
out of the regular school day, it would be a
Right,
fee.
not an elective or something
Correct.
like
Do you
that.
guys have a sense of how limiting a factor that is? In other words, how many students
The cost?
would, cost?
Over the years, I think it's been pretty limiting. It's expensive.
For the summer course.
Yeah, the summit
When
course.
you're saying it's pretty limiting.
It is.
It does limit, I think, families, yeah, it's about $700, yeah. But again, there is the course that they can take as a junior, as one of their 8 classes, if they choose. And we run probably somewhere around 40 students a year in the junior
Right.
class, in that
Right.
class,
That's right on. Thank you.
so.
Yes.
Just a general question.
What do you think, moving into this building, highlights in terms of what the most obvious benefits have been to, I guess, both the staff and the students?
Sure. Well, I think just the preparedness of the classroom spaces, and the technology that we have in the classroom spaces with the projectors and the accessibility of the web and the internet for those type of things and those activities. The space, I think, just and the options for the things that I know we've talked about them before in other meetings, but the presentations that we've had in here have been phenomenal, and you know, from the medical side or the science side, or we had an alum who just came back and spoke about his experiences in the Peace Corps. So I don't know how that happens in the old building, that you can get 80 kids in this setting and you're not overwhelmed, you're not lost. And so I think that's another, you know, very obvious positive for the whole thing. But I think, again, from the single classroom to say, what is a student experiencing in his or her seat in that setting, to the other side to say, well, what happens after school? They're in the fitness center. They can shoot some hoops in the gym. I'm here at 6 a.m. and there's kids waiting to come inside to work out. So I think one of the things that's always impressed me about the school, and certainly when I came here, is how it's just such a centerpiece for the community and how the kids treat it that way. And I think they're just their own interest in their own learning. It's only even more reinforced by the building and their interest in being in the building. You know, if you didn't lock the doors to the library, there's could be kids in there till 10 o'clock. You know, just reading and studying and talking, and so I think again, just their very obvious commitment to why they're here, what they're getting out of, what they're putting into their own education, and what they're getting out of it in this new building is that's really where the goals. I mean, where the best parts of it are on display.
Just a quick follow-up comment to that. I think our students have always been a proud group, but the pride that I've seen that this group of students here now has about their school it's through the roof. And I think that's great. I don't think we should have to build a $123 million school project every 5 or 10 years to get that pride, but it really is great to see the pride that the kids have in this facility.
I'll give you an example. I got an email today from a student, and this is the absolute truth. I got an email today from a teacher who, and I think it goes to the spaces, but those spaces allow to happen. A very needy student who is in academic classes when possible, but we had another student who has found time when that other student is in that class to work privately and in a one-on-one setting, and to kind of help that student along with a very, very difficult subject matter, and you know, expecting nothing from it, and has kind of struck up a little bit of a friendship and a mentoring opportunity. The teacher just emailed and said, I don't know if you know this is going on, but I get to see this every other day. And of course, it's helping that student, it's helping the other student, and it, you know, because it can happen. And the building's as big as it is, nobody's lost.
The other comment I want to make was on the AP philosophy, because I've had a number of conversations with Mr. Bernard on this, and also with residents. Every year when the Globe puts out the rankings, we're not in there because the Globe ranks on scores. And I know John will confirm this, when he was principal, now that he's the superintendent, I would be on the phone with him or calling him, trying to understand our philosophy. And this year I finally got it, because I think it's great to push our kids. And if our kids want to make that commitment, they want to sign the contract that they have to take the AP test, and if they're going to get a 2 score, which is still considered, quote, passing, that brings down the district score. But I think for that kid, I think it raises their confidence level. I think it says to them, I can do coursework I never thought I could do before.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, I finally understand the philosophy of letting as many kids take AP courses within reason if we have, the staff to teach those courses. And so every year when those Globe rankings come out, we're not gonna be in there because, some of our neighbors, we have more kids taking AP courses than Wilmington does. And Wilmington's a much larger school.
We had over double, almost.
By far.
Number of kids taking AP tests as Wilmington, and they have a 20% higher enrollment than we do. So giving the opportunity, I think, is Mel
Yeah,
said.
thank you.
More important than figuring out whether we stand in the test scores. I mean, it was overwhelming when you look at the number of participants in Wilmington versus North Reading. It's crazy.
We probably administered over 400 exams this
Right.
spring.
It's close to
Like 404.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, just about that.
Score is the only thing that matters.
Exactly.
That's all about the work. Those
Right.
classes are all about the work.
Right. And whether they get a 2, 3, or 4, they're preparing themselves for college if they're going to college. Those courses prepare
That's
them
right.
for college, I think,
That's
better
right.
than anything else, they're gonna get.
And we were still acknowledged by the College Board on the AP honor roll this year for the first time, which says a lot, given our large numbers particularly.
Thanks.
Scores in Shanghai are very high, but they select the students.
Correct.
Right.
That's why when we're compared to other countries, I always say you have to look at their methods of measurement. That's good.
Thank
All the kids there that don't go to school at all, they don't get counted.
They don't count those.
Right.
I think we tell Shanghai in those scores.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Yep, I'm just gonna check out here.
All ready? Okay. They have the handout, they have the itinerary.
Oh,
I think Kathy's going to introduce Lacey
Okay.
as one of the teachers leading the trip. so-
Are we gonna go right back up there?
No, I think you can stay here.
Okay.
They can- Right, you don't have a PowerPoint, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you're good to come back. Thank you.
thank you.
Turn the heat on?
Back one more time. I brought with me a new, our new French and Spanish teacher, Lacey LaHaye. She's completing her first year. She's done a fantastic job. And she has a trip proposal that she wanted to hopefully get your approval for. So Lacey, you're supporting the trip. They have it in front of them.
Okay, this past year we did my middle high school trip, we did it in November, and I think it was a huge success. The students had a great time, and everything went smoothly, and moving forward, I'd like to make an 8th grade trip, and we're proposing to run it again this November for my 8th grade French students. And it would be, we leave early on a Thursday morning, and we get back late on a Saturday night, and we have cash, and it's amazing how much the program does in 3 short days. We stay in the chateau of Frontenac, which, if you know anything about Quebec, it's a huge, looks like a castle on top of the hill. So it's a really great experience for the students to see this huge building, and that's where they're staying. It's in a hotel. So the price is on the, I think it's on the back.
Yes.
So it does vary a lot depending on how many students sign up, and I think it's worth offering the trip and seeing how many students sign up and what the interest is. And I would love to continue it. And of course, my counterpart, Jean Hogan's totally on board for chaperoning if that works out. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm really interested in building the program however I can and doing what I can to get the kids engaged and interested in learning languages. And Quebec is a little piece of Europe. It's a drivable distance away. It's one of the safest countries, safest cities. It was small enough for that age group to have some independence where they're in another country and they're hearing another language, but it's still close enough to home that it's safe and comfortable. Their cell phones can't work. They get parents. Parents appreciate that.
How many students went last year?
It was about 40.
And what was the breakdown of middle school, high school? Mostly 9th graders?
It was a good mix of high school students, all different age groups, and there were only 4 8th graders this past year. It was the first year that it was going to 10.
So do we have to have this minimum of 20 to 24 to be able to do the trip?
I would assume so. You get 1 chaperone per 10 students.
Right.
I don't plan on going to this. So
It'd probably be too costly anyway, I would think, if we only had 10 students too, so.
And even at 20 to 24, I understand it can be a high price. I'm definitely interested in looking into fundraising if that needs to happen. But, I'd love to at least offer it to the students and see what the interest is. And if they're interested in going, I'm interested in doing what I can to get them there.
So are you going to open it up to the high school students again as well? Like, or is it this strictly
This year
middle
we were
school?
thinking it would just be middle school. I think that was the plan when it was proposed last year. The plan was to kind of put it out there, see how many kids were interested in middle school and high school, and then this year, for the fall of 15, begin to make it an 8th grade only trip.
Oh.
And I think, I don't want to be premature, I think the high school has plans for their French club to perhaps travel at some point to France.
At some point, they would like to have a picture for you.
The real French.
Do you want to mention that you've done this trip, too?
Yeah, I actually have, as a chaperone, when I was an assistant principal in Reading, done this exact trip, stayed at the Chateau Frontenac, and it's an outstanding trip. It's a great opportunity, as Lacey said, for the kids to use their language, to talk with, store owners and buy goods and eat French food and use their language pretty much the whole time. I mean, English is spoken, but they can use
They
their
won't
language.
speak unless you're speaking in French anyway, so.
It's actually a law in Quebec that they have to
Right.
read you in French and
Right.
English, and then however you respond is through English, like they'll.
How many eighth graders,
Reluctantly.
take French?
Yeah.
Right now, we have, we had about 20 plus.
So is this only for 8th graders?
It would be for 8th graders.
This year I had about 37, I think. I had 2 classes of French. This coming year, I
One class.
plan on it being one large class.
So 20 plus entering grade 8 taking French.
I wish I had the article with me, but there was an article I read a week or two ago, and I only read parts of it because I have a short attention span like every middle school kid now because of the internet. So, but it said, it was something like, French is going to be the international language, and it's not Mandarin. And I didn't read into why, but it was like that so many places, French is becoming a language that's spoken like the second language in a lot of countries. And I think if we could, if we can get enough kids that want to take this trip, it will only help them to become better citizens of the world when they go out into the real world.
I tell you,
Yeah.
when I was in middle school and high school, French was the #1 foreign
Yeah.
language that was taught, but well ahead of Spanish,
Spanish, yeah.
German.
Well, I took a very similar trip in high school, and it was by far one of the best experiences I had. So
When I was in high school, I went to Quebec, and that was my first experience in a French-speaking country. So, first world with me then. It's a great place to take advantage of how close it really is to us.
It's a good break-in or practice if you're going to go to France, too. You try out things up there, and then if they work out, you can proceed to the next level,
It's a good
so.
transition.
It's a whole lot closer than the next French-speaking place.
Exactly.
Yes, no, I realize.
Whereas you only have 20-ish, chances are for you to get 40 and 50 upwards of students. Would you open it to those who don't necessarily take French?
If we were close to that number and we had some Spanish students who really wanted to go, I think we would entertain that idea to make the trip possibility.
And,
They just wouldn't be able to take as much advantage of the opportunity to use the language. It's still a great trip.
do you introduce foreign language to 7th
Yeah, we do, right?
grade?
We do. There's
Right?
an exploratory in grade 7 where they learn a little bit. This year, some students chose French. That's
Okay.
where we're getting that 20 plus.
Yeah.
And the remainder of the 200 and so kids chose Spanish. But it's
Okay.
very basic, beginner, exploratory.
Would
So you
it
don't think, I was going to just, probably the same question you're going to
To the
ask.
7th graders?
Yeah.
open it up to the
Seventh
7th graders to get them, like,
Interested, right.
in French? I mean, is that a possibility?
I know moving forward, they're not selecting the language in 7th grade, they're exploring the languages in 7th. So it wouldn't be a population of students who really like personally know which language they're going to take in 8th grade. So it wouldn't necessarily be, this is the French class that chose.
Oh, so are they gonna both have French and Spanish in 7th grade?
That's what we're moving toward for
Right.
next year, is an exploratory of each, so they can make a better informed
Yeah.
decision. Just focus on one in grade 8.
In
We
grades,
could certainly, if we have 16 kids and some 7th grade students wanted to go to make the trip happen, I think we would entertain that.
In sixth grade, we have no language right now, right?
As you know,
I know.
One of the NRA
We should have it in the we should have it in the first grade. We should have it in kindergarten. Right.
Yeah.
It's going on our goals again this
Yeah.
year. It'll be on part of our goals.
It's been our goal, I think, since I've been on the committee to expand. I mean, we've actually lessened the amount of foreign language we do at the middle school. I think at one time, I think they had a full year in seventh grade, or a half a year.
Half a
Yeah, half a
year,
year.
yeah.
exploratory was
Right.
grade 6 before my time.
Right.
That's how I understood.
Well, it's funny, I emailed Kathy about this just a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I thought back in February, you said you were going to add the seventh grade, and she's like, yeah, with the budget
Right.
that
Can't. And we'd really, I
pushed
think,
aside.
It was originally part of the discussion
Right.
for this
Will
coming
continue to
budget.
be.
Yeah, and we have the Spanish club, so we started this past year, and moving forward, I'd like to introduce the French club also, so as teachers, we're trying to do everything supplementary that we can to, to boost the program,
Mhm.
and all this stuff.
I'll look for that article, and I'll email it to you, Kathy, and you can pass it along. It was really interesting.
Does the superintendent recommend?
Superintendent recommends. We've had some very good travel, foreign travel experiences in the last several years, and I think to, again, introduce our middle school students, I think there's a dual purpose. And when it was originally pitched, it was to generate interest in the language, but beyond that, I think it does serve a very good cultural experience for young
History.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do recommend.
Both my children actually went on the Quebec trip this year.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they enjoyed it.
They come back?
Yes, they did.
That's always important. That's a good question, Jerry, you know?
Yes, they did. A lot of walking, they said. So,
And this year, the high school's going to Ireland?
England, Ireland, Scotland.
Right.
Yeah.
It's coming April, right?
I'd move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. You're welcome.
Merci.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
One of the three words I know.
Mr. Daly, would you like to come down and do your presentation? Or we're gonna have to move again, aren't we?
All these kids are.
Isn't that weird?
That looks a little weird.
I know. Last year, I was in the same countries they were in, and now this year, I'm going to be in Ireland and Scotland. I know.
Wait, you're going back? You're going-
I'm going to Ireland and Scotland.
Oh, that's strange.
I know. It's not planned, it's just, it's working out.
Well, maybe they,
Yeah, well, not the same trip. I'm going to Ireland and Scotland, maybe. My wife. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe they're following your email or something.
You lose it? There we go. All right. Is everyone here? I know it's been a long night. So just wanted to briefly take you through some updates with mathematics. Wanted to start by thanking especially the hard work of our curriculum leadership. They've really been charged with quite a bit this year, especially in mathematics. All of our curriculum leaders do a fantastic job. But I wanted to especially recognize our mathematics leader, Kathy Govain, Laurie Johnson, and Beth Brown at the elementary school, Maria Bunton at the middle school, and Derek Dorval at the high school. So as we know, there are many key shifts in mathematics. We have our new mathematics standards, 2011 Common Core standards were adopted. As we're well aware, there will be a new state assessment in the fall, either an updated MCAS or a PARCC assessment. There are new textbooks and materials. We talked about this a little bit, but as I've mentioned to you in the past, the original Common Core aligned textbooks were just the same textbook with something new slapped on the cover to say it's Common Core aligned. They've really come a long way to really change the way their programs are offered. And finally, the new digital formats. I think it's important to consider that the idea of a book itself, as much as we like a hard copy of a book in front of us, the idea of a textbook is really moving away. It's not something that's part of the future, unfortunately, in the publishing world. A lot of our textbook providers have said to us, if you do a 3, 5, 7-year textbook adoption, it's basically a 3, 5 or 5 year phase out of print materials. So, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind.
This cycle, I would not likely be recommending all digital. I don't think we're quite there yet. We don't really have the capacity yet, and there are still print books, and I think the vast majority of students, teachers, and administrators, I think, still prefer that hard book. So, but that is what's coming, and I'm just including that here as some of these key shifts. A few things that are happening in mathematics. We looked at a diagnostic program called iReady. We've used a lot. We viewed a lot of different programs. We chose this one. It's an adaptive diagnostic, which means that students will take the assessment, and as they get questions correct, they will advance to a more advanced question. An adaptive assessment is different than something like we would see with MCAS or PARCC, which test students only on grade level standards. This assessment would place the student where he or she is in terms of mathematics and give the educators exactly a placement of where the student is and what kind of materials and instruction the student requires for the year.
Pat, can I ask
Yes,
a question
please.
on that? So that test sounds more like the Smarter Balance
Absolutely. Yep.
consortium test.
It does. That's, sorry.
So I guess I'm wondering if we're giving this kind of assessment to our students during the year, but then they're getting a different kind of assessment from the state, shouldn't there be a linking up of that, or are they for different purposes?
We actually chose it because it was the opposite. We felt this gave us a more balanced approach. One set of data is going to give us exactly where students are in relation to standards, which is what MCAS has always done,
Right.
which is why Massachusetts wouldn't consider Smarter Balanced. But we like the idea of something adaptive that was able to show us where students are so that we can really measure their growth, not just their growth against the standards, but their growth in math, because we're always differentiating based on students that might be where we need to provide intervention either based on higher or lower needs. So we actually chose it that way. We've done it's a 2-year pilot that we did. We tried it for 2 years to see how this works. It's on the computer, which we really like, so students are able to access the assessments on the computer. It's scored on the computer, and it gives us some growth measures to think about. And so we've done this in K-5 in 2014-15. The 6th grade teachers are excited to have some of these 5th grade scores, something to look at moving into next year, and we're going to expand this for K-8 for next year and see how that works for us. An update on our Common Core alignment work that we're doing. We now have K-8 mathematics courses that are fully Common Core aligned. We have a grade 7-8 accelerated course that's fully Common Core aligned that ran this year. For next year, we will have Algebra 1 in grades 8 and 9. We had a grade 9 Algebra 1 course run this year, and we will have it in grades 8 and 9. It's the same course. And we will have Algebra 2 and Geometry courses running next year as well. For this year, we're running an online geometry course. It's currently offered to 9th grade students who meet criteria. These are essentially students who may have taken the course in middle school had it been offered. It wasn't developed yet, wasn't available. We decided to really slow it down and take our time to make sure that we fully understood the new curriculum, and we're very glad that we did that because we have made a lot of changes to what we've taught in Algebra 1. We will continue to offer that in 2015-16. We have about close to 20 students who are doing this class right now. Some of our real top students who've taken on this extra challenge. It's essentially an extra course in their freshman year. It's not something you do on the weekends. This is something that requires quite a bit of work. And if anyone's ever taken an online course or experienced online learning, it's a different set of skills. And in some ways, we're very excited about this because the chances are students are going to take an online course either in college, in graduate school, or so much of what you do on workplace learning now is online. So we're excited about this opportunity, and the students seem to be very positive. We will be evaluating consistently also to get feedback from students about the program, but so far so good. We do have a teacher who's meeting with the students face-to-face because we felt that it was very important to have that personal contact as well so you don't feel lost in that online environment. So we've tried to give students that blended experience in the best of both worlds. So what I really wanted to talk about tonight was our mathematics pilots for 2015-16. My understanding is that it's a school committee approval for any new adoption of a major textbook process. So what I was doing tonight was just laying out the process for what we're going to do over the course of the year, to talk about our programs in order to bring back a presentation, hopefully in the spring, with all of the data that we've collected from our pilot. We're doing a very thorough pilot program, I believe. We will be piloting programs K to 12. And I think it's very important to make sure that we understand that all of the programs we're looking at, even though they offer a slightly different approach to the instruction, are all aligned to the standards. So no matter which program a student is using in the classroom, all students will have the same opportunities for learning because everything is based on the same standards. We've also spent time reviewing some tools, how we're going to review these programs and discuss them. And there's plenty of opportunities for teacher input throughout the year. So here's some of the work that our math leaders and I've been doing this year. We've spent a lot of time meeting with different publishers and talking about the different programs that are available. We reviewed, I believe, 6 or 7 programs, and we've narrowed it down to 4. We have also researched some tools to review the programs, and I'll speak to that a little bit later, what we're going to use for criteria. We've made site visits. Our math leaders went to Reading, who is using Math in Focus, which is Singapore math. We went to Melrose, who's using an older version of Envisions. We're going to look at Envisions 2.0, which is just coming out this summer. We went to Newburyport, and Newburyport is using Engage New York. And we learned quite a bit from those site visits, and those site visits actually helped us choose the programs that we're going to pilot at the elementary school. A lot of time consulting with job alikes, so other math leaders and other districts, to talk about programs that are working there. I wanted to speak a moment to edreports.org, which is, as you can see at the bottom here, you'll see EdReports came out with a study that offered a consumer report style review of different mathematics programs. The only one program really received good reviews, and this was Eureka Math, which is based on Engage New York, which is a free program. Eureka Math has a cost. What it basically does is take the free program and binds it and provides some materials like student workbooks and practice materials, and something that's very easy to distribute to students. I did ask every publisher as they came in to meet with us, how come you got a poor score from EdReports? And what they said was, well, they had very specific criteria, and they also said that what the report did was, if you didn't meet the expectation on the first set of criteria, it just stopped looking at your program, which they felt was very unfair. So that was interesting. We wanted to hear that through. One thing we did consider was that, you know, we weren't at that time looking at Eureka Math, and we said, well, we should probably at least look at the one that did get the green dots across the board, because perhaps there's going to be something there that we say, wow, we didn't realize these other programs were lacking this until we saw Eureka. So that was a consideration. I think it's worthy of noting that edreports.org, which is the leading study that's out right now on math programs, was funded by the Bill Gates Foundation, which also funded Common Core. I think that's important for us to realize. NCTM, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, came out in recent weeks. Maria Bunton, our math leader at the middle school, shared with me a report that the NCTM called for EdReports to go back and revise their study. So I think that's interesting, and I just wanted to share that with everyone here. The programs that we will be looking at the elementary level: Envisions 2.0, Go Math, Math in Focus, which is Singapore Math, and Eureka, which is Engage New York. At the secondary level, we're looking at a program called Big Ideas, which we've been using some of their resources and materials so far, and also we'll be looking at Eureka. And obviously we're looking for vertical alignment as well, so we make sure that whatever programs we're choosing at the elementary are well supported and blend nicely with what we're doing at the secondary level. So as far as an evaluation tool, all the educators that are participating in the pilot will use a tool. We're still fine-tuning it. We want to make something that's very user-friendly, but essentially one of the tools that were looked at would have these components. We'd be looking at a curriculum analysis. How well is the program aligned to, and does it cover the standards? If you recall that a big shift with the standards is that there's inclusion of these 8 mathematical practices. So how well does the program address the math practices? It shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be something that's part and parcel with the program. And then finally, we'd look at these overarching considerations. So when we look at the equity, is the program accessible to all students? Are there ways to modify for all different types of learners and disabilities? Are there opportunities for formative assessments throughout the program, accessing prior knowledge? And then finally, how is the program using technology? A lot of textbook companies offer technology, and it's really just an online version or a CD-ROM version of the book. Some of the newer programs are starting to actually offer, here's some tutorial videos, here's a place to do some practice, here's the online book, here's some worksheets, here's some drills. So they're really starting to evolve about how they're using technology. So those are the things that we're actually going to be assessing and collecting data on throughout the year. And it's very important to us that we are communicating. So again, tonight is a sort of a pre-approval with the school committee. We're communicating to all educators to make sure they understand this is a lot of work, but what we're doing is we're giving everyone a voice in this decision. And I think we all do appreciate the work that it takes to do a pilot, but we do think it's the responsible thing to do. And I think in the long run, we will appreciate the time that we put in. In a lot of ways, it's very easy to say, you know what, we've been looking at a few materials, we really like it, let's go get it. But we want to make sure we're making the right decision. Communicating the fact that there is a pilot to students and families. We will be spending a lot of time in the fall at the elementary levels, the middle school, the high school, talking about the pilot, assuring parents that the different programs do not mean that some students are getting opportunities that others are not. There are different programs, but all of them are based on the same standards, as I mentioned. And then finally, we'll be coming forward with a presentation in the spring for the school committee, and I believe the approval process here would require some viewings of this. As I mentioned to folks, we were very careful in our process we didn't want to pilot a program that we thought would be financially not feasible in the future, so we made sure that all of these programs are financially feasible. However, that's not the same thing as cost is not an option. Obviously, if we look at two programs and they're similar, but there's a cost differential, that's obviously a variable that we would consider moving forward and would include in our presentation to you in the future. And that's all. I don't know if you have any questions.
Could we get a copy of I don't get a copy of the presentation in the packets, and
Yep.
Could we get a copy, because I'd like to look into some of these
Programs?
that we're considering.
Yep.
Thanks.
Absolutely, I will share that.
Patrick, I just have a question about
Sure.
the rollout of the pilot.
Yep.
Will teachers have the opportunity to pilot a program that their, co-teacher would be using? Because I think that's beneficial, that they can kind of work together to plan things. Is that part of the
Sure,
plan?
we spent a lot of time with the curriculum leaders trying to figure out the best way to roll out the pilot. There are many different ways to do it. We thought about, letting everyone try everything. One of the problems with that is that the benefit, obviously, is you know all the programs. The downside would be that these programs really take a while to kick in. And if you just do it for a few weeks or a month, you may not fully understand the program. Another thought was to do one program at each school, which would allow your neighbor to be able to talk with you about the program. The problem with that, we realized, is you would probably come back here in the spring with each school wanting to do their own program. So what we're really doing, we're creating a network. We have one teacher at every grade level at every school. We've already shared out the link today. I went and made presentations at the Hood School today, and I'm going to the other schools as well, where we're just putting teachers together. And so the teacher's already telling me we're going to create Google groups and we're going to share. So it might not be the person next door, but it's going to be someone in the next building. And the advantage now is that, okay, the next door neighbor's not doing the same program, but you can share notes now. You can say, well, I just taught fractions with this program. How did it work with you? So those conversations are going to be ongoing. So it's not necessarily in your same building, but it's across the district. At the middle school and high school, they will be able to they're working on a plan to try the programs and share neighbor to neighbor. It's just a little bit different model there.
So Patrick, that means it will shift the current models in like some of the fourth and fifth grades in terms of one teacher specializing in math. So it will be a different model next year for how the teams work. They won't necessarily be the same as.
Sure, I should have clarified that. At the fifth grade level and at the fourth grade at the little school, they're taught, all the math is taught by one teacher. So for that grade level, each school is doing a program. So one teacher's teaching We're not going to ask that same teacher to do 3 different programs. So each school is going to do a program, and the 5th grade teachers are going to collaborate. So it's a little bit different model there.
Will they basically follow the scope and sequence of that curriculum that they're using? So essentially, there could be some differences amongst, say, 4th graders. One group could be doing fractions, another group could be doing geometry. So that
Yeah,
could
there
happen.
are some considerations that I'm going to be discussing with the principals and superintendent just about really scope and sequence, as you point out. To artificially move things in the program would be to not implement it with fidelity, and we might not get a true read on the program. So there might be some variations with how standards are met and when they're met. Everything would be met in time for state assessments and things like that, which no matter what next year, I think we're all aware, no matter what next year, there's not going to be a mid-year, the PBA, which was in March, April, that's not going to exist anymore, whether it's PARC or MCAS. All the assessments will be towards the end of the year, similar to, well, if it's PARC, the assessments will be towards the end of the year. I think with MCAS, it would continue in March and May. So no matter which program we're using, we would have got to those points. But I agree with you, it's something to consider. Implementing the program with fidelity would possibly mean that you might be hitting things at slightly different times in different places. But all the standards will be covered for all students by the end of the year.
Kathy, can you go back to the yours iReady? How is, as you shift that now into the K through 8,
Mm-hmm.
does this just mean my kid's taking another test? I'm sure it doesn't, but please tell me it doesn't mean another test day.
It's not another test. I mean, it's not an addition. I think we always do different kinds of assessments. This is just a new way of doing this.
And how many times will this happen?
Well, there's different pieces to it. What we're using at K-5 right now is we're doing something at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. So we're able to get this information. And quite honestly, I would think that by doing it on the computer, it actually saves quite a bit of testing time. So where students may have spent a lot of time doing some catch-up, and quite honestly, spending time maybe learning something that they've already mastered, we're going to get this data almost instantly to say, nope, you're already good. We're going to move you on and do something that's more appropriate for you. There are pieces of this. Kathy O'Connell spoke about response to intervention. There are pieces of this program that they're developing for progress monitoring. So if you are identified as having a weakness in a certain area, you could go in and have more intensive lessons in a certain area. I wouldn't think of that as more testing. It's another tool for intervention. When you're in a classroom with a teacher, we always talk about how do we differentiate. The computer can be an assistance tool in that way. We spoke about Khan Academy, things like that earlier. There's ways to use technology to help differentiate in a classroom, and I think iReady is promising some of that. Those are new tools that are not quite available yet. They're supposed to be coming out this fall. We're going to be able to preview those. But essentially where we're going to use it is really framing the year in order to measure some student growth.
But it doesn't replace the common assessments in math that happened at the beginning of the year and are happening now at the end of the year, correct?
I'm not sure what you're speaking.
The DDMs, is that what you're?
Taking right now?
Yeah, well, we always have many common assessments throughout the year. This may replace some of those. And a DDM is a district-determined measure for educator evaluation. What the teacher uses as a district-determined measure is up to the department. So it's not necessarily that this replaces anything else. I mean, that's just a measure used by educators for their evaluation. I'm not sure if that's what you meant.
My son calls it his finals, and he doesn't have to study for, so I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what those would be, but.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Do I just email that tomorrow, or email it to me? I'll send it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Anything else for me?
No, no, you're good.
Thank you.
Okay. Cold?
email you.
One of them
I'd rather be warned. That's just me.
usually
Alrighty.
in vision,
Yeah.
because they're piercing.
Minutes?
I have, you know,
The review of the town-owned land, do we need to do that?
The next item, the review of the town-owned land, the memo from the town hall was not ready for the packet, so that's something we'll have to take up. That's an annual review, that'll have to be taken up in July.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So on to routine matters. We have the minutes of the executive session for May 26, 2015.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions, concerns, or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Staying.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Motion passes 4-0-1 with Cliff abstaining. And then the regular meeting in open session for May 26, 2015.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mel, second by Jerry. Sorry, Cliff. Any questions, concerns, or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. The regular meeting in open session for June 1st, prior to the town meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Bauer, second by Mr. Venencia. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And executive session for June 8th.
Move to approve.
Second.
That's good, Jerry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Motion passes 4-0 and one abstention. The meeting minutes for June 8th, open session.
Move to approve.
Second.
That's Cliff.
Ooh,
Cliff got it.
Cliff got it, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. All right. Next, we have, is there any staff, no, there's no staffing at this time.
That is correct, Madam Chairman.
Okay. And bids and donations. I see that the middle school, excuse me, Parents Association has a very generous donation.
Move to accept with gratitude.
Second.
Thank you.
Can we spell out just spell out what the donation is? So
Certainly, the North Reading, well, the,
Donation to defer expenses associated with the grade 8 trip to Washington DC and other year-end field trips.
in the amount of $3,760.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. And who wants to do this one?
We have, and again, I'm not sure, does this come through the superintendent?
It has, yes.
Mike Prisco and his family, I think most people know Mike, he's on the Board of Selectmen, is offering to make an $18,000 donation or thereabouts to erect a 60-foot flagpole, which would include the cost of installation, flags, and a memorial, I think a memorial plaque.
That's correct for
Two
regarding
two,
some
two,
servicemen.
yes,
North Reading.
lost their lives in Vietnam.
And the landscaping that might go along with that, to the North Reading Middle School, High School. This is an extremely generous donation.
Certainly is.
I think that, I think we've had some discussions about this, haven't we, John?
We have, yes. I've been working with Mike. Again, as you said, Mr. Venezia, a very generous donation. There are some steps to be taken with the building inspector, testing the soil to make sure that the pole can be accommodated on the site that he would like to have the flagpole installed, which is actually right outside this room.
Right.
If you're looking from Park Street, it would be on the left of the distance learning lab, but I think it's very good location, certainly a very generous donation. I think it would be a really nice feature added to the new
I'm
new
just-
campus.
I think it's an amazing donation, and particularly with the addition of the memorial plaque, et cetera, but it's something they'll be able to see from Route 62.
Right.
We obviously have a flagpole going in front of the building at the entrance, the middle school, high school,
Correct.
main entrance. But this is on a completely different location.
It is.
Side of the building, and I think from Route 62, it's going to look spectacular.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what to say other than thank Mike and his family for making this donation.
Could I get a second?
Yes, second.
Thank you.
So I make the motion to accept with a lot of gratitude.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you to the Prisco family.
Yes.
Subcommittee updates. Excuse me. The policy subcommittee, would Mr. Bowers or Kopke like to expand on anything else that may have happened?
We already have done a second reading,
Yeah.
that was part of our report. The social media policy has been put in kind of a holding pattern, waiting for our digital learning specialist to come on board. We think
Makes
that
sense.
maybe it'd be a good idea to get that input.
Yeah.
The policy that we have in draft form is based on readings that I've had since that policy was developed. I think we were perhaps a little more liberal than we might want to be. I think maybe Ms.
Yeah, I think we just want, to tap the expertise that this new person could bring to us, experiences that he or she may have had in other districts. So I think that's why we've made that decision.
Cliff was just delayed until his term was over, but.
I do want to mention, I think this is the first time Cliff has said he's ever been too liberal. How long have you been on the board, Cliff?
I've often been too liberal.
He's never said it before.
He's never said it before, though.
Often. I find out afterwards that I've been too liberal. And I did a lot of that liberal stuff when I was younger. And I got a lot more conservative as I got older and learned more.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Imbriano, if you mind me adding for the benefit of the committee, that there also were a number of policies that were identified through the coordinated program review of needing updating on the, I'll say, for kind of the non-discrimination statement. So at our last meeting of the policy subcommittee, Mr. Bowers, Mrs. Kopke allowed me to do a little bit of work with those policies in the manual, and there are going to be a number of them that are going to be in need of updating. It'll look like a lot more than I think it actually is going to be. I expect it to be just a really, a quick step, I think, to capture the essence of what the non-discrimination statement update should be and just apply that to a number of the policies. But that's something that's coming to you at a later date once we've had a chance to gather all of the policies that are going to need to be updated.
All right.
It, in typical fashion, it's like 5 words to be added in a long line of words to be able to meet the requirements of the state regulations, which very often don't have all of those words in them themselves.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Only because I'll forget if I don't mention it now. Mr. Bernard, could you put the social media policy as a subject for next year's parent advisory? Because many of our groups do have Facebook pages, and we'd like to hear what the school policies are for posting things. And when we do get a new digital learning coordinator in, I'd love to hear what their expertise is for how we should write our own policies.
I'm going to ask you to remind me because I'll forget.
But that's one of my concerns, is not only groups that you're discussing, but we have numerous sports teams, clubs that have Twitter feeds and Facebook pages, and they're using the NRHS logo, and, so it looks like it's kind of, under the supervision of the
Ours.
school.
Right.
And it's really not or the district, and it's not at this point.
We
So
will.
I think that having your group, the groups you're discussing also as part of the discussion would be helpful.
Right, I mean, we don't even have a formal policy
Right.
yet, other than me telling everyone, you don't get to post anything until you check with the principal or whoever has the press release
Right,
guidelines.
right.
Because we're not allowed, like, you can't put a picture that has a student on it.
Exactly.
We have lots of pictures of food.
Right,
and things
right.
like that, but, you know, the students.
Good idea.
All right. The schedule for upcoming
finance.
meetings.
Finance planning team.
Finance planning.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. I'm going to let you take the lead because I snuck out early and I do need to get the date.
Basically, Mr. Bernard's going to cover one of the issues. There was a great deal of discussion between the school committee members and Mr. Connolly regarding the roof project at the Little School, and John's going to talk about that in a few minutes. There are very preliminary numbers for revenues for next year, and it's nothing that I'm really even going to pay attention to, because if I start worrying about the 2017 budget and what the revenues are now.
We haven't recovered from
Right,
this.
exactly. So there was just preliminary discussion of that. And then at the next meeting, which I forget the date, August 9th, do you remember, Michael? Because we're skipping July, right? Didn't we say? Or did we?
They originally scheduled a July 17th date, but then they decided to go against it. I think you're right.
I think it's
So,
sometime in
you're right.
August.
So it's
I have it in my phone here. But they
August
want,
14th, I
they
believe.
want to start discussing ideas
Friday.
on three-year budgets.
Yeah, August 14th.
And I just, while that's always a good idea, I just don't know how you develop three-year budgets when you don't know from year to year what the state's going to give you. But what they're looking for actually is things, we discussed some of the things, the potential things that could save money. And none of this has been approved or even discussed by the school committee. But if at some point the population gets to a level where at the elementary school we would redistrict, that could save money. There are ways that we could save money. There's nothing we can commit to over the 3 years. But, if at some point enrollment at the middle school gets to a certain level where we can reduce 2 teachers, we could save money. But they're also looking for, are there any ways, and I know we've talked about this before, we could work together with the town and save money on different functions that both the school and the town, technology, I know we've talked about before. So they're looking for some ideas at that next meeting in August for 3-year budget. And as I say, I think that's extremely difficult to budget 3 years out.
It is.
And that was about it. There wasn't any.
Have we ever thought of, like, instead of doing K through 5 at 3 different schools, to do K through 2, 2 through?
Or that was one of the ideas suggested, like, could you save money if
Who
you
suggested
did?
that?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
Like, could you do K through 2 at one school?
Oh, my word.
And 3K at one, and I know other districts do that. I personally wouldn't support that, and I don't know if you'd save money. My guess is you wouldn't, but.
Well,
Well, you maybe.
You'd have, I know you'd increase busing costs, that's
pitchforks
for
in the yard, that's for sure.
And you'd also, if you had
Pitchforks in the yard.
if you had to bus kids from
Yeah.
way over here to the little school, or you're gonna increase busing costs, I
Well,
think.
you'd have families at different schools, different locations,
Right.
too.
Right.
Yeah.
So the answer is no, I've never considered that.
Well,
Congratulations.
it's just one of those
Amen.
things that we-
Please don't.
Congratulations.
So
Dan, you
that
got
was,
that, right?
Dispense with that.
You got that, Dan, right?
I think that pretty much sums up the meeting. It wasn't, because we're so early in the current fiscal year.
Absolutely.
Oh, we haven't even started fiscal 2016. It's difficult to start discussing the
Yeah.
2017 budget.
Yeah. I mean, all revenues for this current fiscal year are on pace to match the current revenue plan, the fiscal
Right.
year that we're about to close out.
Yeah.
So that was,
I think when we get into our goals workshop, seriously, I think it's impossible to plan a 3-year budget, or project a 3-year budget, but what we could do as a school committee is try to project out 3 years of what we'd like to accomplish as far as
Yeah.
initiatives and curriculum goals and things like that, and say, this is what we'd like to do. Let's attach a cost to it, and let's
Yeah.
see where we are when it comes time to see what the available funds are.
Right.
So,
Good idea. That's it.
Okay. Upcoming meetings, the athletic subcommittee on June 23rd at 12:30. The SSBC meets here at the Distance Learning Lab on June 23rd at 5:30. And then Jerry will attend
I
NORCAM
gotta go to all three of those.
Yeah.
on June
We're
25th at
overbooked.
7 PM. And with that, Mr. Bernard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I would just add, Mr. Venezia, Mr. Webster, that athletic subcommittee meeting tomorrow will be here in the administrative conference room, not at the old
Okay.
high school,
Yeah.
okay? So the administrative report that I wanted to share with you tonight has a few things. As Mr. Webster alluded to just a moment ago, the work that we've undertaken with the town on the with the MSBA and the Little School Roof Restoration Project. There was a meeting held last week. Michael, Wayne Hardiker, and I went to the town hall. We met with the town administrator and with the finance director, and it was determined at that time that the course of action to take to secure funds for the estimated cost of the owner's project manager and schematic design for this project should come through a reserve fund transfer. So the town administrator very graciously offered to work with the finance committee to schedule a meeting. That's going to be held this coming Thursday at 7 o'clock. Michael and I are going to go to make a presentation and to speak to with greater detail the needs for securing the funds by August 3rd, and so we're hopeful that we will be successful with that. So that's just a little bit of an update for you, but I would say, I'm very, very pleased with the level of cooperation we're getting from Town Hall, and certainly Michael and Wayne have been very, very close to this project, and I will continue to keep you posted. The next item is a list of dates of things that are coming up in the summer and leading into the fall that I thought you all should be aware of, and I'm hoping, Dan, you have a copy of this too. If you could work on publicizing these, I would appreciate it. The only one that is tentative at this time, but I think probably as early as tomorrow night I can secure with the SSBC, is the open house for the middle school, the ribbon cutting ceremony. We've talked about that as being on a Wednesday evening, Wednesday, September 30th. But going back to page 1, we have a new teacher orientation program, our annual program for new teachers to the district on August 26th and 27th. Mr. Webster, I think you were asking earlier about days for the middle school teachers to be in. We've identified August 31st and September 1st as optional classroom setup days and technology orientation for the middle school teachers, much like we did last year for the high school teachers when they came into their new school. Ms. O'Connell and I have worked on a schedule for an open house for the middle school students on Wednesday, September 2nd. We decided this year a little bit different. We're going to do a grade 6 session from 9 to 11, or she is, I should say, along with Mr. Maloney, a grade 6 orientation session for students on that same day, followed by a grade 7 and 8 orientation session. And then our opening day for faculty is September 8th, followed by first day of school for students in grades 1 through 12 on Wednesday, September 9th. And if I could just, I'll call your attention to the September 8th day is usually when the school committee would come and be introduced, and the chairman would speak to the staff on that day. That'll be in the Performing Arts Center here at the middle high school. And then the first day of school for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students would be Friday, September 11th. I also wanted to show you and run by you, and again, Dan, this might be something, if we can get this, I can give this to you electronically if the committee. Yeah, sure.
The September 2nd open house for middle school students, you think we're gonna be okay by the 2nd?
I'm hoping so.
I
Yeah,
think, Jerry, at
I'm
the
hoping
last,
so.
I think you might have left the last SSBC
Yeah.
meeting, we discussed that date, and they were pretty confident, right, John?
I did reach out to Joanna Kripp about these dates before we solidified them, and, she does not see them as being a problem, as of last week, so. I mean, certainly, I think it's probably
We can
fair to
ask
say
again
that
tomorrow.
things could be subject to change,
Curious how
depending
many
on.
days we're gonna need right up to,
Right.
again, to get settled.
You're talking about bric-a-brac.
Yeah, I'm talking-
If there's anything,
Yeah,
then.
okay.
You're in good shape out there.
I'm just
think-
saying, it might be tough bringing all those kids in on that day if
It
we
may.
have stuff to move around.
I think the earlier we can get them in there, the better, but at the same time, you're right, if it's not, but we do want to get the kids comfortable, because it's different than this, it's more, there's more to learn than there is
I was
to
just
learn in
looking at
this
like
school.
Monday the 7th, but it's only talking.
That's Labor Day.
Oh, that's Labor Day, okay.
And the 3rd was a conflict for some of the administrators,
Right, right.
and we thought the 4th was the Friday of a Labor Day weekend, so the 2nd became kind of the latest day we thought we could do it. But again, if something comes up and we feel like we need to bump we'll make the adjustment if we need to. The next page in your packet is related to this item, and then we'll go back, is the drop-off, student pickup plan for the middle and high school. So in the past, well, last year, we published, with the help of the transcript, this diagram for parents to get a sense early on. As well, the two principals will be communicating with their respective families of the students at their school, what the plan is for the student drop-off and pickup times and locations and such. So essentially what this drawing represents is, and I want to thank Mike Maloney, the assistant principal at the middle school, for working on this for me. Essentially, the traffic would flow as it does now up to the high school, but it will just continue around where it's not able to go presently, but it'll continue around what will be the central office and then come back out the same direction. That's for all vehicle drop-offs, parent drop-offs and such, as well as anybody that's going to be parking in that back lot, any students of the high school, and then all faculty. The Sherman Road loop, if you will, is where all of the bus drop-off will be. So essentially, the goal is to have a steady flow to the front of the school, really, from around back, so that all of the students, or most, I should say, of the students, all those who are being dropped off by either a parent or a bus, would be in the front plaza.
So what you're going to have to prevent here, are these parents are going to want to decide to drop their kids off at the Main Street entrance.
That's correct.
Because that's going to happen. Parents are going to.
The goal is to avoid that to the extent
You're
possible.
going to have to, because if they start stopping there.
It's going to back it all
That's
up.
not the
Correct.
big issue with this, and I just don't know what the solution is.
I know what you're going to
is
say.
You're going to have people
Crossing. to get-
parking and
right.
crossing there. And the cars are going to have to stop, and then you're going to have a backup that goes, because I've seen it on events here. I've seen it at events where people are crossing and no cars can go. And we can't have a police officer here every day.
No,
So
but we
I
will have
just-
the administrators, and
You can have the
especially in the
administration
beginning.
there.
Right, but I guess,
And I'm
we don't have the
wondering if we-
money, but you know what the ideal solution here is a pedestrian walkway that goes up and over, because it's gonna take, Jerry, I have big fears about this
Well,
traffic situation.
Well, the issue is, and it's all, we're gonna have to wait and see, but you're gonna have the traffic coming in now for the entire middle school
Right.
and high school faculty and staff, even though there's a gap there.
Mhm.
The staff comes in,
Half hour
whenever they
early,
want,
right.
half an hour early. So you've got all the staff coming up there, you've got all the student drop-off coming up there.
And I know
it's
for
gonna be-
pickup, I mean, parents tend to
They
get
line up
here
early.
really
Well,
early.
That's my
On
concern.
pickup, I'm talking about drop-off right now, and then you're gonna have a lot of people coming in, because that pickup, the flow's gonna be broken up. I mean, not everyone's gonna be
Well,
leaving at the
no,
same
but the
time.
problem is the middle school
But-
pickup is gonna get here at the same time that the high school
Well,
kids
that's
are
the thing.
picking up.
They're there like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is definitely gonna be an issue.
They-
because-
Parents can't be out there at 2 o'clock lining up, and that's why on this grid, it says, that time has to be after 2:10. I mean, the parents are going to be essentially working against themselves if they do something like
Yeah,
that. It's
and-
going to,
And it'll be a disaster, because you got these middle school parents, like they're.
They'll be
parked
waiting out front because their kids aren't coming out for another 20 minutes.
And now the flow, it's not gonna flow.
Right, it's not gonna flow.
not
That's,
gonna
so,
flow.
I don't know if there's another way. I thought there was gonna be kind of a one-way in, one-way out kind of thing, because I hope this works. I've got serious doubts
Well,
about
last year,
this
I mean,
working.
obviously, when we opened the first day
No,
last
right.
year, it was a disaster. and
Right.
It took us about a week to get everything flowing, and everything worked out fine. This is gonna be a little bit.
I don't
more
share your
complicated.
concerns at all. I think this is going to work fine.
Okay. I
I've
don't.
done the circulation through the parking lot and around the front loop and back out. And
There's nobody in front of you or behind you, Cliff. mean,
I know,
this-
but, there's that's a long
It is.
queue that
But
runs
it
around
is.
there.
If you've got people coming around to pick up their kid
This
Yeah.
is,
early, and that kid's not out there, and now they're stopped, there's no
Flows
place to
straight,
go.
there's no place to
this
go.
is the entrance.
Right.
It's a single file,
It's a single line.
So their
doing
kid's
a
gotta get out
U-turn
there
and-
and
Well,
Well,
keep
that,
things
but,
moving.
But see, that's the problem, is you're gonna have middle school parents there while high school is,
and there's no reason for them to be there. They should
No.
allow the high school parents to pick up.
I
and
agree.
drop
If
It'd
off.
they,
probably
if
be
they line
more
up at,
learning.
after 2:10, it's really a quick exit from the high school.
Right.
At 2:10, it's largely cleared out. And if
My-
the parents for the
We're not
middle schools.
inventing this, by the way. There is a middle
No,
school
I know.
pickup now that involves a
Right.
long lineup.
yes, it
Oh, no, they're out beyond the badge.
Yeah. My bigger issue is those people walking across. You're gonna have hundreds of students.
Can we funnel everybody down that main
And staff.
sidewalk? The main sidewalk that comes down from the parking lot?
But they still have to cross the road.
Yeah, but if you, at least it'll only be one place that they'd be crossing. If you have a staff
Oh,
member
I see what
out
you're saying,
there,
right.
They could coordinate that.
Versus them crossing it
Versus
all
over
different.
here and
right,
over here and
right.
over here.
Well, if it's all plugged up like you think it's going to be, that would be pretty easy for kids to cross the
Well,
the road.
you just don't
Well,
want to.
either way, I hope this works. I just,
I think you're gonna have somebody out there though.
Well,
to-
like all things, it's going to be an education.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult to commit someone out there every day, that's going to be a difficult commitment to
morning,
make. I think in the beginning, to get people used to the lineup, and I think, as much as this gets publicized, but Ms. O'Connell did tell me that the middle school faculty largely will not be arriving before 7:30.
Really?
And she's been prepping them for
Right.
like a 7:35 arrival, the start of that. And really, the high school is in session at 7:30, so if anybody comes even 7:32, 7:31, 7:32.
What are you doing for parking? You designated lots for
So-
faculty and staff?
So Mr. LaPret and Ms. O'Connell are working on ideas for designating certain parts of the lot as faculty and student. I told them if they wanted to work to do that, then they could do that. I've worked in a school where that was the case. It's all about, how much time do you want people committed to managing the parking lot? I'm not a big fan of it, to be quite honest with you, but I told them if they wanted to work to try to do that, I would endorse
Consider it.
that. I would,
Consider it.
yeah.
I mean, I guess the only thing we can do is see what happens. I mean,
That's
there's
right.
no-
And, even this year, we did have to make some adjustments when things we saw weren't going well.
Oh, yeah.
We made some tweaks, but it's going to be.
worked out pretty good.
It's worked out largely, it's worked out well. It has.
Is there, I know it's a parking and car plan right now, but is there a clearly marked pedestrian route
Yes.
that doesn't always come down this way?
Yes.
Since the majority of middle schoolers are actually going out towards Town Hill Road. The pedestrians. I've got half the middle schoolers walking to Ryers, but there's a large portion of parents that don't do the pickup line. They park over, like on Hill Street and things like that, because there is a paved path access from the middle school gymnasium to that side of town, which means you never even have to hit the traffic light at Ryers. So let's get these kids walking.
I don't know where that would be.
It's by Mrs. Carey's house.
Have you figured out how many parking passes you can give out? I mean, based on the number of available parking spaces?
So the number is about 440 spaces.
Total, yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that number would be somewhere around 240,
240.
right?
Okay.
200 staff, 240. student.
Correct. Again, rough numbers,
Might leave some spaces open, obviously, for
correct.
visitors, which this year was at a premium when
Mhm.
seniors were still here. Now it's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
As I say,
See how
you
it
can
works.
just.
So it's,
yeah, see how it works.
it's the first crack at it, I guess, if you will. But it is going to be, I envision it, I think people are going to work to try to make it the best situation that it can be. And if they observe the suggestions for the times and such, I think that'll contribute favorably to it
Hoping
working.
the transcript get this in the paper this week, if not. But the one question I have, so this area where they're coming around to the drop-off, there's no way, there's no access if someone decides, hey, you know what, I want to go down and go out Sherman. There's going to be curbing here, right? There's no way
Yeah.
that they
So
can,
they
Oh,
can't.
no, you can go through.
It is an emergency.
but will it be closed?
No, I think you can go through there, Cliff,
Yeah,
right?
you can.
It's
Oh, gee.
to
So that,
access
that's
Sherman
that's
Road.
my concern too, is that people are going to say,
I'm not turning around.
the hell with this, I'm
Yeah.
going right down, I'm going down to Sherman, I'm not going to drive around all the way back. and-
Surprisingly, it's been, for the Sherman Road access for the buses now, it's been very good. People have been respectful of that. They haven't been using Oakdale to Sherman to drop students off. They've
Right,
let
but I'm
that
saying
be
when
the-
they get around in that long
No, I know-
loop,
I know
and
what
then
you're
the
saying,
temptation
but I think
is
if
gonna
we-
be-
it would be very easy for people to do that, have done that this year, and they really haven't. So I'm hoping that they're cooperative.
No,
I mean, that's where the police become involved, because that's,
I'm just thinking about my
No.
worst thoughts about human
What
nature.
he's saying is, instead of them
No, I know.
doing this turnaround and going back
just
out
going
this
straight
way-
out.
Yeah.
I know. yeah, but that's.
But they don't have the ability to do that now because that access.
No, what I guess the point I was trying to make is, people have been very good about observing the recommendations that we've
They're
made,
not
just in a
driving
general
up
way.
Sherman to
Right,
drop
that-
it
that's the
off
point I
the
was
door.
making.
The curbing leaves that open.
Right.
Right.
Well, again, pickup is a lot better, because a lot of kids are staying after school for different reasons, too. They're not getting picked up, and they're not going home at that time, so.
in high school right now. If you're in the high school right now, are you stuck in the queue? If your student say your student walks up to your car, are you still stuck in the queue?
Yeah, there's no other way to,
Like there's enough room in the middle school right now that you can be to the right if you're still waiting in the queue.
I don't think
And
there's,
enough room on the left.
No.
no.
No, not the way they're
No,
doing it now.
the way they're doing it now, there's just,
You park and you line up, and
You're in the
you can't
queue.
move until
right.
the car in front of you moves.
So it'll be
All right.
interesting.
So, that's,
Thanks for the preview.
you're welcome,
Gotta-
yeah.
There's got to be enough room there for perhaps 15 or 20 cars in that loop
Right.
to be sitting there,
Right.
ready for kids to.
Right.
And that plaza is large, so the kids can gather
Well,
out
it'd be a
there
nice
and
place
be
to sit.
ready.
Right.
So is it,
And parents will figure out what the right time is to arrive to make it happen. And then the parking lot is going to be one way in and one way out. That'll
Well,
get rid of that blockage right
that's
at
my other
the top of
question.
the hill.
So during this pickup, and where do the cars go that are coming out of the parking lot?
They cross the line that's going in and join the line that's going out.
If this works, I'll be the most surprised person on the planet with all those cars trying to get in and out and the cars from the parking lot. I hope it does. I just,
Well,
there's no options. We have no
Yeah.
options, so.
There
Well, I
will
don't
be
know if
some
we know.
transaction time involved.
There will be.
But
I'm
it's
learning
kind
from-
of like building a highway large enough so there'd be no backup going into Boston.
Yeah, but if the transaction time is like some of the transaction
15
time I
lanes
spent
wide.
this year trying to get out of this parking lot 15 to 20 minutes after a basketball game, that's not gonna make anybody happy, Cliff. We can't say there'll be transaction time.
That's an aberration.
Well, we can say it to a certain extent.
Yeah, but if it's 15 to 20 minutes, we can't
Yeah,
say it.
well,
30
you know,
after
it takes you 2
7:30.
hours to get out of Gillette Stadium.
Right, but what I'm saying is, that this is a daily thing.
But,
And if it doesn't work right,
yeah, we're gonna have to.
it's poor planning
Or
by
if a
those
child
who
gets
planned-
injured.
Right, by those who planned our facility, if it doesn't work right.
I think we ought to give it a chance before we.
Well, I agree,
Draw that
but
conclusion.
with, you tell me how cars are gonna get out of that parking lot in addition to all the parent cars going in and out. I don't understand it.
I'm not sure for the high school you're gonna see as many parent cars as you think for the high school. And that's when that's when the student traffic will be coming out. That'll be before the middle school pickup,
Okay.
so.
That more parents that have both the high school and the middle school.
They're in big trouble. Yes.
Oh, I thought we had talked about having the high schoolers just kind of wait in the library until the middle school gets let out, and then we only have one pickup, right? Many moons ago, maybe it was at the secondary school building committee. Basically, just working with the students, that if you have a parent picking up both high school and middle school, instead of them going in the queue for the high school and then coming back around for the middle school, those high school students would just wait until the middle school is let out at the library and then go out together at the same time.
I think if people observe the recommendations here,
Yeah.
I think it'll work well.
Do we know the
I do.
numbers of cars that come in and out, the pickups
Uh,
and drop-offs each day?
I don't know for both schools.
Yeah.
It's a large number for the middle school, I can tell you that.
So there's 650 students.
640
620
students, so yeah.
So it's probably, you
It's a
think,
good number.
300
There's
or
a lot of
400
cars.
300 or 400 cars, maybe?
I don't think
know if
that's,
it's that many.
yeah, I would have said, I think you could, for two schools, I think you could say that number.
Yeah,
Through the batch and back out to the street.
okay. I
So,
hope it
Madam
works.
Chairman, is it fair to say, do you think this is a good to go, like, first crack for
I don't-
people to see in the newspaper?
I don't see an option.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and
Okay.
it's what has been always discussed during the development of the school.
Okay,
You know, that was the way that we were going to go.
It works.
all right. I did have a couple of other quick things. I know some of you, or maybe all of you, got to see Beauty and the Beast this weekend. It was, the Little Schools Drama Club was, it was an outstanding performance. I think it's worth acknowledging everyone that was responsible for putting that show together, but particularly Chris Tatro and Leslie Mazzoni as the directors. They just did a fantastic job. It was so much fun, and I just think I couldn't help but sit there and think about what a wonderful feeder for all of the good work that our theater programs are currently doing, and just good things to come. So a really, really nice job, and everybody just had an awful lot of fun. I thought it was.
John, I just have a comment about that.
Sure.
Knowing that my daughter is at the Hood, I would love for that drama club to expand to include the other elementary schools. I mean, I know, Mr. Tetro has spearheaded the program, but if the other schools had, equal opportunity to participate, I think that would be phenomenal.
I can't make a commitment for anyone. I can only tell you that I know that there have been preliminary discussions around an elementary theater program. What that looks like, what it might be, I don't know. It's been very preliminary, but there has been conversation around that to achieve what you just said.
Is Mr. Tatro getting a stipend for that?
He is.
He is?
He is.
Because I agree with Julie. That was on my mind. I think it should be expanded.
Yeah.
And I
Because my
think we have
daughter's
to-
sitting there and she's like, I can't wait to do this. And I'm like, well, the Hood doesn't do it.
I think if, again, if you could find even a central location and maybe increase the stipend to make it worthwhile.
Absolutely.
To incorporate all 3 elementary schools.
Yeah, Kyle Lister has broached the subject, so, where it's going, and I can't tell you tonight, but
Because that
the
was.
good news is there's some interest there.
That was an amazing performance. I mean, you put
Fantastic.
them up on that stage, and I think that inspires the kids for one thing.
Absolutely.
And just to see the lighting and the
Yeah.
way they handled it.
And just to see, what's to come in middle and high school,
Yeah.
getting that experience at such a young
It
age.
was really unbelievable. I couldn't believe it.
And I
in
think
elementary
this,
school.
oh,
kids.
yeah, I
Costumes, the sets again.
absolutely, it was
The
fantastic.
work they did moving the sets in
Yeah.
and out.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
We just had
In fact,
so
it
much
made
fun.
my entire weekend. There was some grandfather there, and he was standing there talking to his wife, and when he walked into the theater, he said, "Oh, my God, look at this."
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, "Oh, thank you."
It's all worth it.
And then he says, "Boy, North Reading's come a long way." That's a quote, and I said, "That's great."
So, I guess I'll say stay tuned, I know that's a conversation that's happening, and it seems like the right thing to do, but I just don't have a lot more detail to share with you tonight.
Great.
We've only had the facility for 1 year.
No, but I think Jerry and I have had this discussion before, that different things at different schools, and you always get the question, why can't my kid grow wheat? Or why can't my kid have a science fair project? Or why can't, although if I was a parent, I'd never ask why my kid couldn't have a science fair project, because I went through it 4 times. But,
Schools are different.
so that's a good question. And if we could have it more involve the other schools, that'd be awesome.
It has come up at the bachelor school as well, just in terms of, that's what got cut from our budget was curtains after they built the school, and to this day, we still don't have curtains. And people are like, well, we shouldn't spend money on curtains. I'm like, well, this
Curtains with
everything
windows?
is here. Other schools have curtains that we put on shows, we can't. So it'd be great to have that kind of discussion.
But they did a great job in that.
They really did.
It's great.
Have you, in relation to the curtains that are coming down from the,
Wrong measurements.
oh,
Yes.
okay.
So also included in your packet, I gave to you a draft of meeting dates for next year. Do you have any comments on that? I think the only thing I may have left off that might need to be added in, Michael pointed this out to me, is if the April 4th meeting is solely the budget hearing, it probably would make sense to have a regular meeting on the following Monday, which would be April 11th, so there'd be 3 meetings in April. Does that make sense? So the 4th would be strictly for the budget.
April 11th.
Okay,
Okay.
Where we present and people can comment?
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
So I'll add April 11th in as a regular, and if, does this look good to you otherwise?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make that adjustment, and I'll send you all a new copy. And then lastly, very quickly, but certainly, I think noteworthy, Kathy O'Connell mentioned about the letter that the gentleman, the tour guide, had written to her, and I asked her last Friday to send it to me, so she did, and it was a late addition to the packet, but this gentleman took the time to write a very nice letter to her and the faculty and the parents and the students of North Reading for it was really nice. I think it was very nice of the gentleman to take the time to write. about, I think the greatest line for me was about people who doubt that our great country's future is in good hands have not met the North Reading eighth graders that I was privileged to guide. I thought that was just such a nice comment for him to make.
That
So.
looks a little like Kathy's handwriting.
David Super. David Super. Huh? The new name is fitting too. Isn't that great? But I did, and I asked her to send it to me. I thought you would want to see that.
Oh,
So.
absolutely.
That's great.
Okay?
Thank you.
So that's all I have, Madam Chairman.
All right. So for future business, yes, we have a meeting on July
Thank you for mentioning about it.
27th at 7 PM here in the Distance Learning Lab. We'll have a goal-setting workshop at the Media Center on August 3rd, and then a regular meeting on August 24th at 7 PM here at the Distance Learning Lab.
Looking at this, and having sat through these kind of sessions, is there any possibility we could combine the August 3rd and July 27th meetings? Have the goal-setting meeting either before or after that regular meeting? And just
I can.
know, if the meeting has a
avoid-
long agenda, that would probably make it a 4 or 5 hour meeting. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just wondering if, since we're only doing one meeting each month, it might be a longer agenda, like, we're gonna have to have AJ come in with the high school
The
handbook. we're
yeah.
gonna-
I think that's July, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just concerned that it would be too much. I don't know. I'm not opposed to it if it's not gonna be 4 or 5 hours, because
Well, Jerry, were you not available August 3rd?
I think I'm available August 3rd.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I think I am.
I can do whatever the committee chooses, so.
Well, how long do you think we need for the goal-setting workshop?
Longer than you want.
it's usually 2 to 3 hours.
2 to 3
That's,
hours.
that's my
yeah.
concern, and then you
Right.
get another hour and a
I
half
don't remember it being that long.
with a,
I actually,
we once had one that was 4 hours. That'll never happen again.
Is that a goal?
That's a goal. The goal was to reduce the number of hours spent at the goals. I'm not opposed to it, but my issue
Is there a better day of the week? Is that a bad day of the week for you, or?
No, I just trying to consolidate.
They're so closely
right, they are close together.
scheduled.
I can be flexible if you folks decide you want to do something different, so.
It doesn't matter to me, Mel's right, you could end up a 4 or 5 hour
Right.
meeting if you're not careful.
Well, if we do the goal setting before the meeting, then we're
We have an end.
putting ourselves in.
What time are we gonna start? We're gonna still be here 4 or 5
It's
hours
still a 4 or 5
regardless.
hour meeting, yeah.
We'll say we started at 5.
I mean, this meeting's
And the meeting
approaching
starts
3
at
hours.
7.
Right, and I'm already beyond goofy.
I mean, I guess you could do with.
They are close together, though, to Cliff's
Give yourself
point.
a
One's
break.
July-
How about could I suggest this? What if we do something that's like a 2-hour window, and if you need more time, we'll talk about a date that you could come back and finish the goal. I mean, there's nothing that says it has to be done in one session.
Finish
Or we
the
could-
goals on the
On the
24th.
24th. We
I mean-
do
Those
that.
those
How does
goals
that
need to be done really early so we can.
How does that
start
sound?
getting at 'em. No, that's all right.
We'll do a 5 o'clock start on the 27th of
7th.
July?
Okay.
Okay?
That's fine. Gets one meeting out of the way.
Goal setting. And then if need be, we'll do a 5 o'clock at the.
On August 24th.
Fourth,
Yeah.
and
That works fine for me. August.
No
3rd is
workshop
close to
on,
my
August 3rd.
anniversary.
August what?
Okay.
August 3rd is close to my anniversary.
thank you.
Is my-
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Good
I like that.
suggestion. And with that, I do believe,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful.
Aye.
Thank you.